frauds. And with Angela Rayner claiming it could make NHS workers homeless, we'll have all the details.
And a glut of asylum seeker HMOs in Mansfield has left locals furious and frightened, with uncontrolled infiltration being dubbed 4 years of hell. Locals have witnessed rising antisocial behaviour, overgrown front gardens, fly tipping and overflowing bins. We'll be live from the former mining town with a very modern problem.
Pack of pork scratches in a pub
2 weeks ago.
Well, yeah.
Now this is a balm, and no one can tell me otherwise.
I go to a lot of gigs, I do like a pint, and I have been known to give a DJ set from time to time.
Yes, with his obsession with football, pubs and pork scratchings, Andy Burnham's social media team has claimed he's too blokey. They want him to broaden his appeal on TikTok for those and be a bit more like Keir Starmer, the least popular Prime Minister in history. Should the PM go woke or go bloke?
And British winemakers are raising a glass to the heatwave of 2026, claiming it will create an extraordinary vintage year of British plonk. With extreme droughts in France causing the worst champagne grape crops in history, has the heatwave put the fizz back into Britain?
Yeah, Martin's got a rip-roaring show today.
He has.
We're going to just softly bed you in, and then he'll take over seamlessly at some point in the coming hour.
Yeah, he is on his way to the studio. And if you are just joining us and wondering what happened, please don't worry. Everything's fine. It was just a technical glitch that brought the channel down for a while. But we have been here waiting to get back to you. And so thank you so much for your patience out there. It's not something we wanted to happen, believe me. And as Mark's just said, Martin Daubney is on his way to do his own show, but meanwhile we are holding the fort for you. But you know what Martin's got coming up in his show now. It sounds a right cracker of a show. So get your comments coming in at gbnews.com/your say or scan the QR code. As I said, Martin will be here very, very soon. A great show coming up for you though. All of that after the news headlines with Sam Francis.
Thank you both, and good afternoon to you from the newsroom just after 3 o'clock. Well, the top story this hour, the Conservatives have pledged to end council housing for foreign nationals. Kemi Badenoch says the policy would evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households from social housing across the country. The party says foreign nationals would also be barred from new council tenancies in future. The party says that the move would free up homes for British people and help reduce the country's rising welfare bill. Shadow Minister Helen Whatley gave us her thoughts on the plan.
Foreign nationals, if they're choosing to live in the UK, should be contributing to the UK economy. They shouldn't be claiming benefits and they shouldn't be living in social housing, which is limited. There's a limited supply of social housing, and that should be there, like the welfare system, as a safety net for British citizens. So what we're saying for foreign nationals who are currently living in social housing is instead you should do what, to be clear, the majority of the population of the UK do, which is find your own accommodation and pay your own way.
But in response, Immigration Minister Anna Turley insists that local authorities are already prioritising local residents and British people for social housing.
No asylum seekers are eligible for social housing. As we've seen from the situation in Norfolk, they are going to be housed in military bases, in places where we can contain people and protect our communities. That is the process. And then at the moment, a number of local authorities already prioritise local residents, British people, when they're claiming their right to social housing. And look, the reality that the only people who can access social housing are people who genuinely have a right to be here. They are settled, they are claiming citizenship. So I think it's important that they are actually integrating into our communities, that they are part of society, and you know, it's important that we're able to do that.
Well, next, let's just bring you a breaking line from the Old Bailey in London this afternoon, where a serial sex offender who was being monitored by the Met Police Force has been found guilty of murdering 2 women and raping a third. 40-year-old Simon Levy killed 53-year-old Comenza Valencia Trujillo in March of last year, and 39-year-old Cheryl Wilkins just 5 months later. The Old Bailey heard in court that Levy targeted vulnerable women in secluded areas of the capital. and had previous convictions for sexual assaults dating back to 2018. He denies the charges, but after 13 hours of jury deliberations was found guilty on all counts today. In other news, the Chief Constable in Norfolk has said that those involved in anti-immigration disorder in Thetford overnight, where people attempted to storm homes linked to asylum seekers and police officers were assaulted, will face the full force of the law. 2 more people were arrested yesterday on a 3rd consecutive night of unrest in the town. It comes after officers were subjected to significant aggression, they say, on Wednesday, with one hit with a rock, another beaten and bitten and spat at. Asylum seekers were removed from properties in Thetford yesterday for their own safety, according to Norfolk Police. England footballer Ivan Toney has been charged with assault following a Met investigation. The 30-year-old was charged with assault causing actual bodily harm following an incident at a Soho nightclub in the centre of London. A spokesperson for the footballer said Ivan acknowledged the charges and although he's naturally shocked, he looks forward to being given the opportunity to clear his name in court. He will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court in September. In Thailand, at least 7 people have died after a teenage boy shot his grandparents and school teachers. He injured more than 30 people. 9 are in a critical condition there, and the Prime Minister of Thailand called the shooting well prepared. The suspected shooter, a 14-year-old male student in the 9th grade, was also found dead. Thailand police currently still assessing the situation and anticipating that the death toll may still climb further, with some people witnessing the situation saying in a statement that they had to climb over the school fence to escape the scene of that shooting as they recount the incident after the teenager kills at least 7 people in Thailand. The senior investigating officer in the PC Andrew Harper case has said he's appalled that 2 of the killers will become eligible for early release under the government's scheme. 28-year-old PC Harper died from catastrophic injuries in 2019 when he was dragged behind the getaway car of 3 teenagers who were fleeing the scene of a quad bike theft. 2 of his killers, Jesse Cole and Albert Bowers, will be eligible for early release next year under the revised government plans to tackle prison overcrowding. PC Harper's widow, Lizzie Harper, has been among a growing number calling for Cole and Bowers to be denied early release from prison. Meta, the owner of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp, has been ordered to pay £421 million to address the harm caused to children on its platforms. A judge said the social media giant is a public nuisance, akin to air pollution, and must put the money in a fund aimed at reducing future harms. The ruling is in addition to £280 million in fines that Meta was already ordered to pay in the case. The judge compared Meta to a factory with advertising and content as its product, and the psychological harm and sexual exploitation of children to be the pollution that must be abated. A spokesperson for Meta said, "We disagree with the ruling and will appeal." And European teams could still boycott competitions, including the World Cup, as UEFA has said that FIFA's defence of its president, Gianni Infantino, changes nothing. The English FA said that a letter withdrawing its support for Infantino is a reaction to the plan to sell off stakes in the World Cup to private investors. European governing body UEFA said in a statement its conditions had not been met despite Infantino's plan being aborted. Meanwhile, Mexico and Argentina have expressed their support for Infantino, with Norway calling on him to resign. Well, those are the latest headlines for now. I will hand you straight back now to Martin Daubney whizzing his way back into the studio.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Let there be light. Thank you very much indeed, Sam Francis. Thank you to Mark, and thank you to Dawn for holding the fort. We're back on air now. The Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals. Under the new policy, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households, whilst all foreigners will now be barred from new tenancies. But Nigel Farage has blasted the policy as a reform rip-off, saying the Tories copy every policy of ours. They are frauds. Besides, are the Conservatives actually responsible for this crisis? Because let's take a look. For the last 13 years, they were in power. Feast your eyes on this. They gave nearly 400,000 social houses to foreigners. In fact, in the year 2023 to 2024 alone, they allocated over 33,000 homes to foreign nationals. And now they want to turn back the clock. Now, all of those houses, half of them, you can see there, were allocated to people outside of the European Economic Area. It's almost Brexit. Look at it. 52% from outside the European Union, 48% from inside the EU. It's the great housing giveaway, and the Conservatives were responsible, and now they claim they're going to put it right. Let's get to this story now in the studio. GBNews political correspondent Olivia Utley. Olivia, we're back. It's wonderful. Thank you very, very much for being with me. The Conservatives have an idea. It sounds familiar because it's identical to a reform policy that came out 55 days ago.
Well, it's a policy that's being attacked on both sides of the political spectrum. We've had Labour figures on GB News today saying that this policy could never work because all it'll end up doing is putting people who were in social housing on the private renting list, and that list gets ever longer as landlords are pulling out of private renting, which will make the situation worse for people who are privately renting. Labour also says that there are essentially just too many people, that it is impossible to get that number down with this Conservative policy, and that actually the vast majority of people in social housing are British nationals, not foreign nationals. Well, on the other side, you've got the argument that Reform is making, which is that essentially this is a Reform-light policy which doesn't go far enough. What do they mean by that? Well, Reform have got a very similar policy, but they are coupling it with scrapping indefinite leave to remain, meaning that it would affect far more people living in social housing. So they're saying that 230,000 people that the Tories would manage to evict would just be the tip of the iceberg. And you can see where they're coming from. The list currently, the waiting list for social housing currently stands at 1.3 million. This is something, though, which will probably go down pretty well with the public. The Conservatives aren't too scared of people saying, you know, you had 14 years to fix this and you didn't. Kemi Badenoch has very much said ever since she came into office, well, this is a brand new Conservative party. We're willing to admit that we made mistakes in the past, etc., etc. Let's see how it plays out in the nation.
I don't think people trust the Tories on this. And the reason I say that is because I spend a huge amount of my time looking at the comments on articles across the Daily Mail, across the Telegraph, the Express, and, of course, on gbnews.com. People are just saying the same old thing, and that is, well, why didn't you do this when you're in power? And more to the point, did you create this mess in the first place? When you look at the numbers, try and get those graphics back on screen again, that I've done these myself, and thanks to our graphics team here. You can see quite clearly that the Tories, in essence, created this problem. Open-door immigration, year after year after year. These are the numbers of foreign tenants as head of household given a free house by the British government. Huge, huge amounts. When you look at them in totality, it is the thick end of, by my maths, it is about 700,000. And so if you take away 230,000, which is their claim today, we're going to evict ostensibly 230,000 of those, beg your pardon, 389,000, my math is bad. You've still got net 159,449 houses that will be crammed full of people that were born overseas. Even if they do their policy in totality, it won't put right the wrong they created. Angela Rayner has waded in, as you'd expect, from an opposite end of the spectrum, as it were, saying this will make people homeless, and even public servants, NHS workers will be made homeless if the Tories do this. She's saying it's reckless, and this will create a homelessness crisis, which the Tories themselves created. I'll have a Tory housing minister on later on the show, and Richard Tice will join us later for his reaction. But I think you're exactly right to say, Olivia, it's been attacked from both sides of the spectrum here.
Well, it absolutely has. I do find it quite interesting how Labour figures seem to be trying to sort of have it both ways, because you've got Angela Rayner coming out and saying this is going to create a homelessness crisis, and then you've got senior Labour figures saying, well, actually 9 in 10 houses are given to British families anyway. Families who are born overseas aren't the problem. Well, it's one way or the other. If they're not a problem and they're not actually using many social housing, not using very much social housing, then surely it isn't going to lead to some sort of homelessness crisis. I mean, let's see how it plays with the public. I think the argument that it is a sort of reform-light policy might resonate, because so many features of it are so similar to reform, with those just little tweaks. So the Tories would give people living in social housing born overseas 6 months to vacate the properties. Reform would only give them 3 months. Perhaps that'll be more popular. I think the argument which the Conservatives have been making, which is that, you know, if you are a young family, say, living in London, you will be working round the clock to try and rent somewhere privately in London. You're probably not going to be able to live within the M25. Your chances of living in somewhere like Kensington or Westminster are obviously nil. Yeah. Whereas if you're an asylum seeker who has been granted refugee status, and let's not forget, Labour say that people who are seeking asylum aren't eligible for social housing anyway. That's true. People who are seeking asylum, but 63% of small boat migrants who came here since 2018 have been granted asylum, so they are eligible for social housing. And I think that is part of the purpose of this policy, both from the Conservatives and from Reform. It's not just about freeing up social housing for British families. It is about stopping that pull factor for migrants coming across the Channel, because that 63% of migrants who've come across the Channel since 2018 are eligible for social housing.
It's quite incredible to hear you say something which is worthy of repetition. I've just driven from Westminster to Paddington. I went through those royal postcodes, Buckingham Palace, Westminster and Chelsea. You're exactly right to point out very, very few of young people in London will ever be able to afford to buy a house there. Yet you can be gifted a house if you're an asylum seeker in the same postcode as the King and Queen. It's mind-blowing. Olivia, thank you very much indeed for getting a show off to a cracking start. Now, moving on. 5 people have been arrested after a third night of disorder linked to the anti-immigration protests in the Norfolk town of Thetford. A female police officer was bitten while crowds allegedly tried to storm homes linked to asylum seekers following damage to properties the previous night. We're delighted now to be joined by GBNews national reporter Jack Carson, who is there live for us in Thetford. Jack, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Martin. Of course, police have made 5 arrests in total over the past 72 hours. Of course, they have defended their use of force in dispersing crowds and protesters and the disorder over the past few days. The Chief Constable of Norfolk Police saying he said that his officers had done good work, that they had been heavy-handed, but that was needed to be able to keep the public safe. Ultimately, this afternoon and into the weekend, they will have the resources available should more protests or disorder take place. Let's give you a sense of what has happened here in Thetford over the past few days or so. This property was hit by disorder on Tuesday evening. You can see there where the windows have been boarded up. This is a house which had been developed into a house of multiple occupancy, a HMO, and we spoke to the next door neighbour earlier on. She was telling us about how she was fearful if that property was to be decided to house those seeking asylum. Of course, as the Home Office processes their claims, this is a very area of real tension on the immigration front at the moment. Martin, you've got the military site at Barnham, just a mile away from here, which the Home Office planned to house thousands of asylum seekers there while their claims are being processed. There's been a lot of protests about that over the past few months, and motions from the local council to object to that, but nothing happening. Locals feeling increasingly like they are not being listened to, essentially, and not being considered, and really quite explainable why those peaceful protests yesterday with some members quickly turned into what, of course, we've seen over the past few days. Earlier on, though, we spoke to a gentleman, an ex-serviceman, an RAF ex-serviceman who lives opposite one of the houses a little bit further north from where we are now, which have been hit by this order over the past few days. He said he didn't agree with houses of multiple occupancy being used to house asylum seekers in the area. Take a listen.
I get annoyed being an ex-serviceman that I know, and my colleagues, ex-service colleagues, we talk to each other on different times. There are people that we know, ex-servicemen, who sleep rough, and they won't put them in places like that and look after them.
So for you, it's the Home Office that needs to take the responsibility?
Yes, it is. They're putting them there. And as I said, if I was one of them people coming over on a boat for whatever reason and they offered me accommodation like that, I'd take it, you know. And so it's not the people in there, definitely not them, because they're not causing any problems.
Yeah, so for John, the Home Office have to take a lot of the responsibility for what's happened here over the past few days and that increasing tension in the area. Of course, they will say from their position that they need to end the use of asylum hotels, using military sites, using houses of multiple occupancy is a way for them to do that. But there is certainly a lot of outrage in this part of Norfolk at exactly what has happened. People feeling like housing is being taken off local people for the Home Office's benefit.
Thank you, Jack Coston there, live from the front line of HMO Britain, and we'll be live in Mansfield shortly, an area that's been called yet another HMO hotspot. Now, speaking earlier today, the Chief Constable of Norfolk Police, Paul Sanford, said this: "We have people who are exercising their right to protest, and of course we will support that. But there are people who live in Thetford who are concerned, understandably concerned, about some of the things that are happening in their town. However, across 3 consecutive nights, a group of people have crossed the line as to what is acceptable, and we have been appropriately policing those behaviours." Now, as I said, still to come, people in Mansfield are battling a rise in antisocial behaviour and fly tipping, thinks an explosion of houses in multiple occupation in the former mining town. We'll be live from Mansfield next, here on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
How can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard.
This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 3:29. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Mansfield, a place I know well, has been nicknamed the HMO hotspot because so many family homes there have been converted into houses of multiple occupation. Now, the local Member of Parliament, Steve Yem, is calling for a crackdown as complaints about antisocial behaviour, fly tipping and overflowing bins are now on the rise. Well, GB News' national reporter Sophie Reaper joins us now live from Mansfield. The former mining town, Sophie, has now been subjected to a very modern problem. Tell us all about it.
Well, Martin, this is a town with a proud heritage in mining, in textiles. In fact, next year they're going to be celebrating 800 years since they were given that market town status by King Henry III. So this is a place really proud to be the town that it is. But as you say, it has now been dubbed an HMO hotspot. And we were speaking to Steve Yem, the Labour MP for this area, earlier this morning, and he said really it's impossible to know just how many HMOs have sprung up here. And that is because so many of them didn't need planning permission, and he says there needs to be a crackdown and it's the council who are at fault. Now, we know that nearby this town centre there's a cul-de-sac where 8 out of 10 of those properties, homes, have been converted into either HMOs or flats. We also know that this building here behind me that you can perhaps see has also just been given permission to be converted to a set of HMOs. Downstairs it will be shops and upstairs it will be an HMO housing of multiple occupancy for 6 people. Now, we've been here in Mansfield all day today, Martin, speaking to local people, some of whom say they no longer recognise their hometown. And I've been asking them what they feel about these HMOs and what they'd like to see happen in the future. Just take a listen. There's been reports of antisocial behaviour, things like that. Have you noticed anything like that?
Mansfield's always been a bit like that, to be fair, but every town gets its fair share of that. But yeah, it does seem to be getting worse. A lot of places seem to be getting worse.
I don't think I'd ever want to move here. Seriously, would you? I don't know.
Well, it were a really nice town. Mansfield in its day, it were lovely. Do you know what I mean?
Changed. It's like
obviously, yeah.
1 week and there's something, then you go a week after and it's closed, isn't it?
Government, as well as the local council, should make sure that there's no fly tipping, there's people are being caught and prosecuted for fly tipping, and all this antisocial behaviour should be, and they should be held accountable.
Seems like there's lots more people, lots more antisocial behaviour. I don't know if that's because of a housing crisis, but then to combat that, I've seen a lot of information on Facebook about HMOs popping up.
And that's the real concern, Martin, of a lot of these residents, that since the number of HMOs has gone through the roof, they've also seen increased antisocial behaviour, fly tipping, rubbish bins being left to overflow. So lots of behaviour that they don't necessarily want here in this town that they love.
No, Sophie Reaper, I know Mansfield well. My mum lives in Ashfield, just next to it. I've campaigned in Mansfield. I've spent a lot of time there. I've had some great nights out in Mansfield. A once thriving mining town, like so many of those red wall seats. Proud coal mining communities, full employment. The marketplace behind in the centre of Mansfield was bustling. There was plenty of money. Those houses behind you, they're beautiful houses. Look at them. They're so well built, Victorian red brick, wonderful industrial revolution housing. The kind of housing that local people would kill for. They would absolutely kill for, and they're being handed out to asylum seekers by the Home Office, a system that's completely broken. Sophie Reaper, superb report. Thank you very much for joining us today. I just want to keep on talking about Mansfield for a moment, if I can. I think it's just indicative of what's happened to working class Britain. You know, these are areas that have just been forgotten abused, underinvested, just thrown away on the scrap heap, really. And the houses are cheap. They've been bought up by the Home Office, by Serco. It's been hollowed out, stuffed in with asylum seekers. No voice, no veto, no say. The locals have been just simply cast aside. I think there'll be an awakening of the next election about such matters. Superb report there from Mansfield by Sophie Reaper. Still to come, latest figures reveal around 1 in 5 student loans are now being given to non-British citizens. That risks costing the British taxpayer billions of pounds a year in unpaid debt. Is it time to scrap giving student loans to anybody from abroad? First now, it's time for your latest news headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. 3:34. The top story, breaking news. A serial sex offender who was being monitored by the Metropolitan Police has been found guilty of murdering 2 women and raping a third. 40-year-old Simon Levy killed Carmenza Valencia Trujillo and Cheryl Watkins in London last year. He raped another woman in the same Tottenham car park where one of his victims was later found dead. Also this hour, the Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals. Under the policy, Kemi Badenoch says almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households would be evicted, while foreign nationals would also be barred from new tenancies. Asylum seekers have been removed from properties in Thetford for their own safety after a third night of anti-immigration unrest. 2 more people were arrested last night after police said crowds tried to storm homes linked to asylum seekers. Police officers were also assaulted. Meta has been fined £421 million to address harm caused to children on its platforms. A judge compared the owner of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp to a factory, saying psychological harm and sexual exploitation of children was pollution that must be cleaned up. And at least 7 people have died after a school shooting in Thailand. Officials say the suspected gunman was a 14-year-old student who shot his grandparents and school teachers before being found dead. Those are the latest headlines. A full roundup of all the top stories at 4.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M3 eastbound is affected by a collision between junctions 3 and 2 in Thorpe. The M4 westbound is affected by a serious collision between junctions 14 and 15 in Hungerford. In Scotland, the A92 is restricted in both directions at Ladybank due to a collision. Across Wales, the M4 westbound from J23A Mega to J26 Malpas is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, cross-country and Great Western Railway services are reduced between Newport and Cardiff Central, with disruption between Swansea and Carmarthen. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time is 3:39. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, can you believe this? 1 in 5 student loans are now being given to non-British citizens. Now, that risks costing the British taxpayer £2 billion a year in unpaid debt. Now, researchers found that in the past year, foreign students received about £4 billion in tuition fees and maintenance loans, about 20% of the total lending under the scheme. But here's the point. It's underwritten by the taxpayer. Now, a spokesperson for the Department for Education said, "We have strict eligibility." Beg your pardon, well, that's the wrong bit. Let's get to my guest now. It's the chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, the former head teacher, great friend of the show, Chris McGovern. Chris, always a pleasure to have your esteemed company. Here's my point on this. Why is the British taxpayer underpinning loans to foreigners? There's been a huge boom in Romanians, and I think we can probably sense there might be something slightly untoward there. Why should the taxpayer underwrite a debt the foreigners can simply clear off and never pay?
Yeah, it's an important question, Martin. I think when historians, and I'm a historian myself, when historians write the story of the ruination of Britain in the last 25, 30 years, I think student loans are going to have a chapter all of their own. I mean, we are currently, students currently are about 300 billion, this is total European and British students, but about 300 billion unpaid. You know, we have a defence budget of, what, 60 billion or so? It's a massive burden, and it's going to increase. The government's own figures say that by the 2030s, it's going to be loans are going to go to, what, 500 billion, then they go on to 1 trillion, and most of this is being unpaid, or at least half it's being unpaid. Now, you can hardly blame Bulgarians or Romanians or Europeans for taking advantage of our gullible, naive civil servants. I mean, we need someone in charge to get a grip on this. I mean, we're boosting the economy of Eastern Europe. We're not looking after our own students. But look, Martin, the truth is, far too many youngsters are going to university. I mean, we should halve the numbers. We should be closing down half the universities and making them into technical colleges, polytechnics. Singapore has polytechnics, for heaven's sake, and they're high flyers in the education world. And we need these kids to get onto vocational courses. So the whole thing is out of hand. And the fact now, adding insult to injury by funding young people who are actually not British citizens and our age.
It's a separate thing, I think, to think about how we deal with university versus technical. I totally agree. But back to this point. If the universities are so convinced it's a great idea to open the doors to the world, let the universities underwrite the debt. How about that? The universities back it. Why should the government? Universities now are ostensibly finishing schools for the rest of the world. Let's be frank. White working class kids are priced out of the market. They're squeezed out by global grades. No, they're at the bottom of the pile. And yet the British taxpayer is underwriting people coming in from overseas, taking these places and then clearing off and not paying the debt back. Now, if they're so convinced foreign students are the lifeblood of their business models, underwrite the debt yourselves, lads.
Yeah, and the fact is, of course, many universities would go bust. I mean, they're cashing in on the generosity of the taxpayer in this country and the stupidity of governments. You ask the question, why are universities doing it? Because they can. And they want students. It's the foreign students who keep the universities alive. It is simply not viable. I wish we wouldn't. My own view personally is that we shouldn't have any student loans. We should have grants for young people who need them. And we should make sure, if you're going to have a loan, you have to have a guarantee, a guarantor, someone who will guarantee it be repaid. That would then solve the problem. We're running more and more into debt, and it's aggravated by giving loans to non-EU citizens. It's utter madness. One day, someone will wake up and say, how on earth did we ever get into this situation where we're ruining our own country? You know, Martin, the tragedy is some of the people promoting this very stupid policy are well-intentioned. They want to help these poor people from Eastern Europe, but we can't help the entire world. We need to help our own poor kids, whether they're in Mansfield or they're in Gateshead or might be a Brummie. We need to help our own first.
I'm pausing for thought after that magnificent speech, Chris, because you should be in politics. And I'll tell you something else. I'm one of those kids. I got a full grant. My dad was down the pit. I also got a National Coal Board top-up grant. Without that, I never would have gone to university. No chance. It was too scary. The sorts of sums of money as a working class kid, you're not taught to handle the idea of a £60,000, £70,000 debt. That's like winning the pools. It's terrifying. People like me would never have gone to university without that full grant. And by the way, trust me, I've repaid that debt with treacle on top many, many times over. Chris, you're exactly right. We need to put British kids first, the working class kids that have been forgotten. Mate, we should try and sort the country out. Maybe we should do that over a beer next time. Thank you very much for joining us today. Chris McGovern, magnificent. As ever, thank you very much to Chairman for the Campaign for Real Education and a former head teacher and just mainlining common sense who'll probably never catch on, Chris McGovern. Now, spokesperson for the Department for Education has told GB News this: we have strict eligibility requirements for student loans and nobody who lives outside of the UK can apply for or receive a loan. Anyone leaving the UK must continue to repay what they owe. It's worth clarifying here that what that means is if you're a foreign national who comes and gets settled status here, then you can get a loan and you can go abroad, and they say you must continue to repay what they owe. The problem is many people don't, and that means that there's a shortfall to British taxpayers of up to £2.2 billion every year on unpaid debt. That's the true story. Now, coming up next, we're live in County Tyrone as an external review is now launched into an astonishing incident in which 51 cattle were shot dead in a field in full public view.
Yes, I'm with the farmers in County Tyrone. The chat is usually about the weather, but to find out if it's going to rain or shine where you are, here's the forecast.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Heat is still a big talking point across parts of Europe at the moment, as well as the fact that there's a lot of dry weather not helping with the ongoing wildfire risk in many places. For Spain, yes, there will be a few showery bursts of rain around tomorrow, but not many, and temperatures are set to rise again as we go into next week. It's still hot across Italy, and there could be some thundery downpours here and there, as well as across parts of Greece, the potential for some thundery showers here. Lots of dry weather into next week, with temperatures for some rising.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, Charlie, as most of the viewers know, I would be involved in agriculture. This isn't quite agriculture. It's quite close to it, the cousins of. A lot of things that go on in agriculture are on display here. Thousands of people coming to this site, Ragley Hall, just about 45 minutes out of Birmingham.
We are the modern ruralists, and here today we have the craft yard. We've got 9 different crafts, all demonstrating what they're up to. Here we have the wheelwrights, and they're bonding a wheel here. So this is an ancient craft that's been going for about. Barney Murray's a bit of a legend, quite frankly. He's the national champion, master dry stone waller, comes from North Wales, and he's a bit of a Thor lookalike. So he's quite popular.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now at 16 minutes past 8, the annual bike ride from Yorkshire to London is taking place today, aiming to honour the legacy of the Batley and Spen Labour MP Jo Cox, who was murdered by a far-right terrorist in June of 2016.
Well, the bike ride aims to champion a cause she was passionate about, as this year marks the 10th anniversary of her tragic death.
Kim, if we can just start with you, what is your sister's legacy?
Well, there's so much that we've got to be proud of that's been done in Jo's name.
same. It's just been 10 years since she was murdered, and what has kept us going as a family has been the way that so many amazing people, including people like this amazing man, have done things in Jo's name to show what our country is really about. And you've got all these amazing people today from all different backgrounds, all walks of life, celebrating the things that we have in common, not agreeing on everything.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
It's a difficult question. Honestly, I don't think I would at this rate, because I think the government tracks, when we say we're fighting for Britain, what are we actually fighting for? The concept of Britain, I don't think exists anymore. When I look at Britain, when I go outside, it doesn't seem to be very British. And I think the core demographic of the people who would normally fight, these white working class boys who, you know, have been fighting for Britain, who we expect just to sacrifice their life in a fight, you know, they've been demonised for decades and decades by the government, by our education system, by the media. Economically, they've been disadvantaged. So why would we expect them to risk their lives when we've demonised them for so long and took them for granted for so long? And this concept of Britain fighting for the British government, you know, the British government has betrayed us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's approaching 10 to 4 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, an astonishing story here. 51 cows were killed by the Department of Agriculture in County Tyrone after a court order required the removal of animals belonging to a farmer who had been disqualified for life from keeping livestock. Now, the decision has sparked huge public and political criticism over whether the cattle could actually have been sold or moved instead. Why on earth were they simply killed in a field? Well, let's cross now to our Northern Ireland reporter, Dougie Beattie, who has all of the details. Dougie, it's an incredible story, and there's been a huge amount of kickback.
Well, it gets worse as the day goes on. As I've been standing here, I've been investigating this story for a little while, but more and more information is coming through to me. And I mean, we now know that the deprivation order was actually lodged on the 25th of March by the Department of Agriculture. Now, as soon as the farmer was convicted in June, they then took that deprivation order into place, which basically means the department owned the cattle. It was public cattle, public money. Let's not forget that. Civil servants sometimes forget that. And they decided to kill the cattle. So that is the first thing that is wrong here. Secondly, we know that some of the cattle had been sold previously, so they had every right to go into the food chain. Thirdly, the minister has said he had to euthanise the cattle. That too is wrong. There was nothing wrong with these cattle. They were perfectly healthy. And then we found out that he'd said silencers were used and that no multiple shots had been used on the cattle. We now know by speaking to ex-Special Forces, if the rifle was a one-shot go, 51 cattle, 51 shots, that too would have been impossible. There was multiple shots put into the cattle. We also have now pictures of snipers in the fields actually taking the cattle out in the fields, and we know that 3 of them came back. So Deirdre's numbers themselves were wrong. This is a massive public inquiry needed, and mainly about the loss of public money. If you were a drugs dealer, Martin, and you had a Ferrari sitting in your driveway, that deprivation order would mean the state could take it and sell it and put the money back into the state. They would not be entitled to go into your driveway and blow it up. And earlier on I spoke to Carla Lockhart MP, who is equally as angry about this whole thing.
Shooting 51 healthy cattle and calves in a field, in an open field, over a prolonged period of time is just wrong. It is animal cruelty, and in my mind it is department-sponsored animal cruelty. So what we need to see is an independent inquiry, not a review, not a lessons learned type review that we see so often in government, and we need held to account our Chief Veterinary Officer, our Permanent Secretary and the Minister. These are the head people within the department who need held to account. There needs to be consequences for this barbaric act.
Well, you can hear from that politician. She is the agricultural spokesman for the DUP in Westminster. She's extremely angry. And joining me now is David Irwin of Red House Holsteins. David, you are one of the major farms in Northern Ireland. Do you have any trust in this department?
there's no trust left, to be honest. And the story just gets madder and madder as the days gone by, even today. Now, don't get me wrong, there's obviously hundreds of really good people who work in DAERA, but the leadership positions and the positions of those who were involved in the day are obviously no longer tenable. I want to pick up on one other thing. Andrew Muir keeps talking about how these cattle were euthanised. The definition of euthanasia is the killing without pain an animal who is suffering from a disease which cannot be cured. So these animals weren't euthanised. If this was people, this would be a murder investigation.
There you are, real anger amongst one of many of Northern Ireland's farmers, particularly this is one of Northern Ireland's top farms. Many in DAERA would not challenge what they say, and there has to be an open and public investigation.
Dougie Beattie, an astonishing story. Great reporting. Thank you very much. Now, the Northern Ireland Minister of Agriculture, Andrew Muir, has told us GB News this. My departments were obliged by court order on the 6th of June to dispose of these animals with immediate effect. Officials are always open to feedback as part of that process. Thank you to Dougie. And coming up next, the Conservatives have today pledged to evict foreigners from social housing, but Nigel Farage has blasted the policy as a reform rip-off. We'll have all the details next. This is GB News, and we're Britain's #1 news channel. First, though, here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good afternoon to you. Here from the Met Office with your latest GB News weather update. The trend with the weather that we've seen through, well, the last few weeks really, of wetter weather towards the northwest and drier, hotter weather towards the south, that looks set to continue really as we go into the weekend, with a front in the northwest continuing to bring outbreaks of rain through the rest of today, but further south, high pressure leading to lots of fine weather through this evening and overnight. Largely clear skies for the bulk of England and Wales. Some clearer breaks perhaps for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but with those clearer skies over England and Wales, it is going to be a bit of a fresh night. Widely, temperatures falling to low double digits, and some prime rural spots could get to mid-single figures, so a bit fresh in some places. Now, it is going to be cloudier across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, and here there will be some rain at times first thing tomorrow morning as well. Similar to today, really, the heaviest, most persistent rain will initially be across parts of northwest Scotland, but we will also see some outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland, and some southern parts of Scotland could see a bit of rain through the morning as well. Further south for England and Wales, watch out, there could be the odd pocket of mist and fog first thing, but this will burn away quite quickly, and then it's looking largely fine. Not necessarily all that sunny first thing, but plenty of bright weather, and it is going to be dry through the morning here. Further towards the northwest, we're staying quite wet through into the afternoon, but that rain does edge a little bit further south and eastwards across more parts of Scotland, perhaps into northern England later on. Central southern parts of the country, however, staying fine and dry and hotter than today, with temperatures peaking in the very high 20s towards the southeast. It's worth bearing in mind there could be 1 or 2 showers across parts of the southwest through tomorrow, but on the whole, much of England and Wales will stay dry with the wetter weather across Scotland and Northern Ireland. It's also going to be quite wet in the north on Sunday, but we're going to see temperatures rising even further in the south. A good chance we'll get into the low 30s.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M40 northbound is affected by a collision between junctions 3 and 4 in Cherwell Valley. The M25 clockwise is affected by a collision at junction 24 in Potters Bar. In Scotland, the A85 is closed in both directions between Methven and Forbray. Across Wales, the M4 westbound from J23A Mega to J26 Malpas is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, cross-country and Great Western Railway services are reduced between Newport and Cardiff Central, with delays between Bristol Parkway and Swindon. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We're celebrating a golden summer with your chance to win a real gold bar. That's right, a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 could be yours. We're also going to make sure your finances are fabulous with £60,000 in tax-free cash. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you and a happy Friday. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you until 6 p.m. A cracking show awaits. And here's what's on today's menu. Top story today, the Conservatives have today pledged to evict 230,000 foreign nationals from social housing. They claim to prioritise Brits and stop us being the world's cash machine. But Nigel Farage has blasted the policy as a reform rip-off, saying the Tories copy every policy of ours. They are frauds. And with Angela Rayner from the Labour Party claiming it could make NHS workers homeless, we'll have all the details on this social housing civil war. And a glut of asylum seeker HMOs in Mansfield has left locals furious and frightened, with the uncontrolled infiltration being dubbed 4 years of hell by locals. Well, they've witnessed rising antisocial behaviour, overgrown front lawns, fly tipping and even overflowing bins. Breaking news for you this hour. The convicted sex offender Simon Levi has been found guilty of murdering 2 women and raping a third. And that's just months after the police lowered his risk level.
A pack of pork scratches in a pub 2 weeks ago. Well, yeah.
Now this is a balm, and no one can tell me otherwise.
I go to a lot of gigs, I do like a pint, and I have been known to give a DJ set from time to time.
Yeah, with his obsessions with football, pubs, the Smiths and pork scratchings, Andy Burnham's social media team has claimed he is too blokey. And to broaden his appeal, TikTok boffins in the Labour Party claim he needs to be more like Keir Starmer, the least popular Prime Minister in history. Here's the question. Should the Prime Minister go woke or go bloke? And British winemakers are raising a glass to the heatwave of 2026, claiming it will create an extraordinary vintage year of British plonk. Now, with extreme droughts in France causing the worst champagne grape crops in history, has the heatwave put the fizz back into Britain? Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. May I say a huge thank you for everybody I met last night at the Circus Tavern there in Purfleet in Essex at the Patrick Christie's special. It was absolutely wonderful to meet so many of you. It genuinely was so moving how you care so much about Channel. It was lovely to chat to so many of you, to have some selfies, a few, dare I say, hugs and kisses, nothing untoward happened, I assure you. It was just wonderful to meet so many of you, shake hands, talk about politics, share a pint and share our passion. Thank you to you all. And if you couldn't make it along last night, thank you for tuning in. Seriously, this channel is 5 years old, and you guys, you're absolutely legendary. Thank you for your continued support. If you want to get involved in today's show, please go to gbnews.com/your say or scan the QR code on your screens now. But enough from me. Here's your headlines with the man, Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. Just after 4 o'clock, we start with some breaking news from the Old Bailey this hour, that a serial sex offender who was being monitored by the Metropolitan Police has been found guilty of murdering 2 women and raping a third. 40-year-old Simon Levy killed Comenza Valencia Trujillo in March last year, and Cheryl Watkins just 5 months later. The court heard that Levy targeted vulnerable women in secluded areas of the capital after years of sexual offending on women in public places, including on the transport network in the capital. He denied the charges but was found guilty of all counts after 13 hours of jury deliberations. The police watchdog, we understand, is now investigating alleged failures by Met officers in how Levy was managed after his release from prison. One constable has been served a gross misconduct notice, and a detective sergeant has also been served a misconduct notice. In other news, the Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals. Kemi Badenoch says the policy would evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households from social housing. The party says foreign nationals would also be barred from new council tenancies in future. Shadow Minister Helen Whatley says that the move would free up homes for British people and help to reduce the country's rising welfare bill.
Foreign nationals, if they're choosing to live in the UK, should be contributing to the UK economy. They shouldn't be claiming benefits, and they shouldn't be living in social housing, which is limited. There's a limited supply of social housing, and that should be there, like the welfare system, as a safety net for British citizens. So what we're saying for foreign nationals who are currently living in social housing is instead you should do what, to be clear, the majority of the population of the UK do, which is find your own accommodation and pay your own way.
Responding for the government, though, Immigration Minister Anna Turley insisted today that local authorities are already prioritising local residents and British people for social housing.
No asylum seekers are eligible for social housing. As we've seen from the situation in Norfolk, they are going to be housed in military bases, in places where we can contain people and protect our communities. That is the process. And then at the moment, a number of local authorities already prioritise local residents, British people, when they're claiming their right to social housing. And look, the reality that the only people who can access social housing are people who genuinely have a right to be here. They are settled, they are claiming citizenship. So I think it's important that they are actually integrating into our communities, that they are part of society, and you know, it's important that we're able to do that.
Asylum seekers have been removed from properties in Thetford for their own safety after a third night of anti-immigration unrest. Norfolk Police says 2 more people were arrested last night following disorder in the town. It comes after officers were subjected to what was described as significant aggression on Wednesday, with 1 hit by a rock, another bitten and a third spat at. The Chief Constable says anyone involved in the disorder will face the full force of the law. England footballer Ivan Toney has been charged with assault following a Met investigation. The 30-year-old was charged with assault causing actual bodily harm following an incident at a Soho nightclub in the centre of the capital. A spokesperson for the footballer said Ivan acknowledges the charge, and although he's naturally shocked, he looks forward to being given the opportunity to clear his name in court. He will appear at Westminster Magistrates' Court in September. Turning to news in Thailand, where at least 7 people have died after a teenage boy shot his grandparents and school teachers. He injured more than 30 people. 9 are still in a critical condition, as the Thailand Prime Minister has called the shooting well prepared. The suspected shooter, a 14-year-old male student in 9th grade, was also found dead. The senior investigating officer in the PC Andrew Harper case says he's appalled that 2 of the killers will become eligible for early release. 28-year-old PC Harper died from catastrophic injuries in 2019 when he was dragged behind the getaway car of 3 teenagers fleeing the scene of a quad bike theft. 2 of his killers will be eligible for early release next year under revised government plans to tackle prison overcrowding. PC Harper's widow has been among a growing number calling for Cole and Bowers to be denied from release. And Meta, the owner of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp, has been ordered to pay more than £420 million to address the harm caused to children on its platforms. A judge said the social media giant is a public nuisance, akin, he says, to air pollution, and must put the money in a fund aimed at reducing future harms. The ruling is in addition to £280 million in fines that Meta was already ordered to pay in the case. The judge compared Meta to a factory with advertising and content as its product, and the psychological harm and sexual exploitation of children to be the pollution that must be abated. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll hand you back to a very jealous Martin Daubney because he just loves my hair.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Well, Sam Prentice, I'm only human. Now, the Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals. Now, under the new policy launched today, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to evict almost 230,000 non-European Union foreign national households, whilst all foreigners will be barred from new tenancies. But Nigel Farage has blasted the policy as a Reform UK rip-off, saying directly the Tories copy every policy of ours. They are frauds. Besides, all the Conservatives are actually responsible for this housing crisis in the first place. Take a look at some figures that I've done here for us at GB News. For the last 13 years, the Tories were in power, as you can see. They gave nearly 400,000 social houses to foreigners in the year 2023 to 2024 alone. Of course, that was the peak of the Boris wave. They allocated over 33,000 homes to those born overseas. And of those houses, where did they go? Well, take a look on your screen. Over half of them were allocated to people born outside of the European Economic Area. And as you can see there, 48% were those from the European Union. It's almost like Brexit, look, 52-48, and it's a great social housing giveaway. Almost 400,000 houses given away by the Tories, and today they pledged to put that right. Well, joining me now to discuss this in the studio is GB News' political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Olivia, it's a great eye-catching policy to put out there. The Conservatives seem to be going through a reinvention on net zero, on taxation, on a great many things. And now they're basically saying they're going to evict 230,000 foreign nationals. It's been criticised by Reform UK. It's also been blasted by the Labour Party.
Well, absolutely. I think it's first important to say that Kemi Badenoch isn't at all afraid of saying we made mistakes, holding our hands up, we didn't get it right in the last government and we are a new Conservative party. I mean, I'll leave it up to the viewers to decide whether or not they trust that. Kemi Badenoch did serve in the previous government, but she is saying that, you know, we are very different. So I think it's hard to attack the Conservatives from the point of view of you know, they got us into this mess. They accept that and say that they want to get us out of it. Then you get onto the policy itself, which, as you say, has been attacked from both sides of the political divide. You've got Angela Rayner for Labour saying that this policy is going to make hundreds of thousands of people homeless. Some of those people will be people who've been living in the UK for decades, contributed lots to the economy, etc., etc. Interestingly, the other Labour argument seems to be that actually 9 out of 10 council homes in Britain are given to British families, so foreign-born nationals living in social housing isn't really a problem. Well, surely it's one thing or the other. You're either got a huge homelessness crisis on our hands, or actually foreign nationals aren't using very many council homes at all. I think they need to decide which way they're taking that argument. Then you've got Reform basically saying that it's a Reform-like policy, and it is similar to a policy the Reform announced just 2 months ago. It is a little bit softer than what Reform are arguing. Reform reform would obviously couple this with scrapping indefinite leave to remain. So that means it would affect far, far more foreign-born nationals. The Conservative policy is more sort of contained, and 230,000 foreign-born nationals would end up losing their houses. The other difference is that Reform have said that they would have to be out within 3 months, they'd be evicted within 3 months. The Conservatives have said 6 months. Now, I think it's worth saying, I think this policy, whether the Reform version or the Conservative version, will probably be popular with the public. We'll have to see how the polling looks over the weekend. Just to give you some statistics, people of Somali origin who live in the UK, 72% of them live in social housing.
It's incredible.
Now, that's not to say that all of those people were born in Somalia. That's anyone who identifies as Somalian, which will include some people born in the UK. But compare that to the population of England overall, 17% of people live in council houses. And I think this is an issue which really resonates with the British public. If you are a hard-working British family paying perhaps 3/4 of your income in lots of cases to live and work in London, to rent privately in London, then it will really rankle living in perhaps just outside the M25, having a very long commute, and going past some of these council houses in some of the most desirable areas of central London, which are lived in by foreign-born nationals, massively subsidised by council rent, council tax. So I think this policy will go down very well. The questions, of course, are, well, is it just another version of the Reform policy, and is it really workable? The other issue that Labour have levelled at this is you could end up with a problem whereby all of these people try and get into the private rented sector. They discover, as lots of people in the private rented sector are discovering, that actually landlords are leaving the private rented sector in their droves because of legislation brought in by this government that makes it harder for landlords to rent. And so you have a sort of rental crisis, which actually pushes up private rented houses for everybody in the UK. So that is an argument which I think Reform and the Tories both need to address.
OK, thank you very much indeed, Olivia. Let's get to my next guest now. I'm delighted to speak with the Labour Party MP for Blackley and Middleton South, that is Graham Stringer. Graham, welcome to the show. It's been way too long. I hope you've been keeping well. So this policy has put the cat amongst the pigeons. The Conservatives are ostensibly taking the clothing of Reform UK. Angela Rayner, of course, your woman in back there for housing, has also steamed in today, saying that this will make refugees homeless and NHS workers homeless if it were to come into bat. But Graham, you know full well the working class in this country, especially in inner cities, are sick to the back teeth of the feeling that British people are at the back of the queue when it comes to social housing. What's your take?
My first take when I heard it was, this is August, and this is an easy way for the opposition to get the front pages of our national newspapers and to get discussions like this on GB News. I don't think it's going to happen. Whatever the merits and demerits of the case, if the Conservatives and or Reform were in government, it may be popular in the short term, but throwing people who are legally have legally got tenancies in council houses out, so they've not got there by any illegal means. They've been offered them. They have a legal right to be there. I think it would not be sustainable, particularly when children were being thrown onto the street. So that's my first thought. But basically, I think British people understand two things perfectly well. One is fairness, and the policy of how council houses have been allocated in the past has been unfair, often in areas, in my constituency, for instance, families who've lived in the area for a long time can't get into council houses. And the second thing that people understand are queues. And I'm not saying within these structures anybody has done anything wrong to get into these council houses, but there's not. If you have a straightforward system of queuing, not only do people understand it, but then local people get into those houses. Graham, and on the third point, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, go on. But we need to get around to. You mentioned the word fairness. It's not fair that 70% of Somalians get a social house in London. It's not illegal but it's not fair.
Well, precisely, that's the point I was making. And the system that's allowed that to happen is not understood. It isn't fair. People understand queues. The fact is, in my constituency and many others, there are families who've lived in the area for a long time, and they've not been able to get council houses allocated to them. That was a fundamental point I was making about it.
And that's what it comes down to. We covered a story earlier this week, Graham, of there are like 2,000 foreign criminals who are eligible for deportation, who can't yet be deported, who are living at the taxpayer's expense in a social house. And it just makes people feel, when you look at places like Glasgow that has become the homeless capital of the UK, because if you turn up to Glasgow and declare yourself as homeless and you get a free social house, there's been a huge influx of asylum seekers, people born overseas as a consequence. There are now waiting lists of over 100 years for a family home in Glasgow. And for Angela Rayner to make this about NHS workers and refugees is a cheap shot. It's criminals as well. It's people who come here illegally on dinghies. You can't always just take the most virtuous members of society and say a policy has no merit in itself.
I agree. There is a gap in the logic of what Angela is saying there. And it takes us back to the point I've discussed with you on your show on a number of occasions. Until we make this country unattractive to people who are coming here illegally and tell those people they will not be allowed to stay in this country, there's no future for them if they've paid criminal gangs to get here, they just will not get the support that they're currently getting. And that means that we need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, the Refugee Convention, and make it absolutely clear to these people that they're never going to get support beyond what will keep them alive if they get here. They're not going to get the sort of support they get now with money, immediate access to NHS and dentistry, which many of my constituents who've lived here for generations, or the families have lived here for generations, they don't get those facilities. So there is a fundamental issue here that we will not solve this kind of problem until we stop people coming here and taking money out of this country or off this country who have come here illegally.
Graham, I know that you understand that. You come on the show very regularly. You understand the working class mindset. You've been in politics a long time. You've seen prime ministers come and you've seen them go. Now, Andy Burnham claims to understand that HMO Britain, the Makerfield test, is an issue. Do you believe him? And more to the point, will the Labour Party, the backbenchers, allow him to clamp down on this? Or will we get this kind of virtuous halo polishing from Angela Rayner? Oh, you can't do that. They're all the best, the most valuable members of society, like NHS people and brain surgeons. There's a huge disconnect.
You're asking whether I believe the Prime Minister and Andy Burnham. Time will test that. He's got this is one area he has got to be very tough. The real measure of leadership is when there is an issue and you know what the solution is. And we know what the solution to this is. He's got a government, we're the government, the Labour Party is the government, which can change the law, withdraw from treaties at any time we want. Andy has to give real leadership in that area. He will be judged not on this one area or other areas that are difficult, whether he can make the case and say this is really difficult. I know people will find it difficult. It's probably against a lot of the things that you have believed were possible in the past, but we have to do it. If we want a fair, homogeneous society, then tough decisions have to be made. So I'm sure Andy meant it when he said it, but he has to lead, make the arguments that will be difficult, and get the Labour Party and anybody else who wants to vote with us into the lobby to change the law. There is no point being in government if you don't use your majority to take tough decisions that will make life for ordinary people better.
Graham Stringer, you're exactly right. Thank you, as ever, for your common sense, and thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. Graham Stringer, thank you very much indeed. Now, still to come, got some breaking news for you now, and it's the convicted sex offender. Look at the state of him. Simon Levi has been found guilty of murdering 2 women and raping a third. And that's just months after the police lowered his risk level. An astonishing story, and that's next here on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel. At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:26 now. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the police watchdog has announced that it is investigating alleged failures of the Metropolitan Police officers in their management of the serial sex attacker Simon Levy, after he was convicted of murdering 2 women and raping a third. And that's just months after police actually lowered his risk level. Let's now speak with the police and crime commentator, Danny Shaw. Danny, it's a pleasure to have your company. A monstrous case, a monster, a killer, a rapist, with a known modus operandi of preying on vulnerable women on public transport, somehow was downgraded in his risk and went on to take lives and destroy others. How on earth was such a predator, such a monster, downgraded?
Well, Martin, that's one of the many questions that needs to be answered in this case, because there were a series of failings by all the agencies involved, by the courts and judges and magistrates, I would say, by the Crown Prosecution Service, the Metropolitan Police, British Transport Police. They have all failed, and the Probation Service, I think. They've all failed in this case, and in a way it encapsulates everything that is wrong with the criminal justice system in the country at the moment. You have here a man who committed an attack in 2018 for which he was convicted and jailed, but it took 3 years before he was actually convicted and jailed. So that's the first big delay, 3 years. He then goes to prison. He's released partway through his prison sentence, as we know so many other offenders are about to be. And he then, when he's released, he starts sexually assaulting people on the London Underground. He's returned to prison. There's an attack in prison that he carries out. He's then released again. His, as you said, his risk level is downgraded by the Metropolitan Police. And then there are a series of terrible errors and blunders. Mainly, it's huge delays by the investigation team at the British Transport Police. And then it's the repeated, and this was really what astonished me, the repeated decisions by the courts to free him on bail, even after he's been charged. A convicted sex offender with an appalling track record is repeatedly bailed by the courts. And it was on bail that he committed the first murder of 53-year-old Carmenza Valencia Trujillo. That was in March 2025. He'd already raped a woman before that, for which he was convicted today. And then in August last year, he went on to murder Cheryl Wilkins. And the Metropolitan Police has apologised to her family because they say that could have been prevented.
Danny Shaw, when you say those victims' names, it just takes my breath away when you see pictures of them. They're such beautiful people who had their lives ahead of them. You know, and I just don't think apologies are enough, Danny. This reminds me so much of the Valda Calacane case. You know, the families of the bereaved become great friends of mine, and what they just tell me all the time is so many opportunities to stop killers, so many opportunities missed. As you correctly say, so many institutions missed. Is it incompetence? Is it overwork? Is it a lack of budget? Is it the fear of being called racist? We don't know. But surely this, as the Calacane case now demands and deserves and has to have a full inquiry.
Well, there is an investigation going on by the policing watchdog, the IOPC. I think 2 officers from the Metropolitan Police are under investigation. 2 officers from British Transport Police have been moved to other duties for incompetence. I hope that there will be investigations into the Crown Prosecution Service, and that the judiciary will look at some of the decisions that its magistrates and judges took as well in allowing this man to be released on bail. I mean, I think the difference here, Martin, is that this isn't someone who came out of the blue. This is someone who's been tried, convicted, sentenced, imprisoned for sexual assaults. He's been readmitted to prison because he was accused of a rape when he was released. So he's clearly someone that is a serial offender, and yet he's given chance after chance after chance. It seemed to me that there's a failure by the Crown Prosecution Service and the police to kind of join the dots, to just stand back and look at the bigger picture and say, what is this man really like? What is he doing? He is clearly a threat. We need to get him into custody pronto. No more waiting. This has to go to the top of the list because he's a predator. He's a danger. We can talk about some individual failings with the first murder, which wasn't treated as a murder, even though there was evidence to suggest that it was. Levy's DNA was found at the scene, so you would have thought he should have been brought in for that far more quickly than he was. It reminds me of other cases. You mentioned the Calacane case, the case of Stephen Port, the serial killer who killed gay men. Again, you know, there were suspicious deaths in that case that weren't treated as murder and should have been treated as murder. Port was there as a potential suspect, was sort of just free to go on his way. And there have been other cases too when there's been an absence of curiosity by probation staff, by police officers, too willing to believe what the suspect or the offender, the sex offender in this case, is telling them. And that is really disturbing because that's not something that a process can fix. That's about mindset and attitude.
Danny, when you look at the pictures of the deceased, as you say, they're Comenzo, Valencia Trujillo and Cheryl Wilkins. Now, they had their whole lives ahead of them, going about their innocent daily business. Their parents are left, without their beautiful daughters. And I just don't think sorry is enough. It's just not. You can't apologise somebody's daughter back into existence, Danny. Something has to be done. And when you say people have been moved into positions, no. People will be looking at this and think until people who commit such terrible mistakes are themselves gravely punished, perhaps jailed, lose their pensions, that's what the Callaghan families want, and that's what should happen here. You can't make decisions, you can't downgrade a clear, grotesque, monstrous predator and watch two people lose their lives without something. Look at these beautiful women. They're no longer with us, Danny. Apologies aren't enough. Heads need to roll.
Well, they may yet roll. There has to be an investigation, and that needs to obviously take priority at the moment into the failings by the Metropolitan Police. The problem with all these cases, Martin, is it's never one individual who's done one thing that you.
Yeah, but nobody's ever held accountable, Danny. People are sick of it. People are sick of the lack of accountability. We've got to see something happen.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, the Crown Prosecution Service, I think, has already sort of held its hands up for some of its failings. I don't know what kind of disciplinary measures or action is taken there, but it should be, because they need to be pressing for people who are before the courts to be remanded into custody when they clearly pose a danger. And I'm not sure they were doing that clearly enough in this case. And as well, I think they have acknowledged that they could have brought charges more quickly than they did in respect to some of the allegations. But, I don't know, these institutions, they're difficult to penetrate. They produce a report, there's an internal inquiry. And it's, I would say with the exception of the police, which does have an independent watchdog and a system of holding people to account, it's quite difficult for some of the other organisations for that to be done.
OK, Danny Shaw, we have to leave it there. You can sense my fury. 2 more innocent, beautiful lives snuffed out by this grotesque predator, this grotesque monster. People need to be held accountable. They really do. Danny Shaw, thank you for joining us today. And the Crime and Policing Minister Sarah Jones said this: the fact that Levy was able to inflict such devastating harm after being freed by police and the courts is deeply concerning. It raises serious questions that require urgent answers. It is right that the IOPC are investigating how this happened, in addition to internal reviews by the organisations involved. Any failures must be identified and must not be repeated. Lisa Ramsaran, the Chief Crown Prosecutor for the CPS, said this: our actions fell short of the standards that victims, families and the public are entitled to expect. We recognise our responsibility and we are sorry for the shortcomings we have identified. They're sorry. Still to come, Donald Trump is trying again to scale back birthright citizenship in the United States weeks after the Supreme Court shot down his previous attempts to eliminate the right to automatically become American if you're born on American soil. Now, here's your belated news headlines with Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you. Good afternoon. Well, as we were just hearing, a convicted sex offender described as a jobless loner has been found guilty today of murdering 2 women, raping a third and sexually assaulting others on public transport. 40-year-old Simon Levy killed Carmenza Valencia Trujillo and Cheryl Watkins in London last year while being monitored by police and while on bail for separate sex attacks. It comes after a series of what have been described as disastrous police, prosecution and court decisions that left him free to roam the streets. The Conservatives are pledging to end council housing for foreign nationals. Under the policy, Kemi Badenoch says almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households would be evicted and barred from new tenancies. Asylum seekers have been removed from properties in Thetford for their own safety after a third night of anti-immigration unrest. 2 more people were arrested last night after police said crowds tried to storm homes linked to asylum seekers. Meta has been ordered to pay more than £420 million to address harm caused to children on its platforms. A judge compared the owner of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp to a factory, saying the psychological harm and sexual exploitation of children was pollution that must be cleaned up. And at least 7 people have died after a school shooting in Thailand. Officials say the suspected gunman was a 14-year-old student who shot his grandparents and school teachers before being found dead. Those are the latest headlines for now. For Roundup with the news at 5, and Martin will be back with you after this.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello again, I'm here with your GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. Now through the rest of today there's still going to be rain across far northern parts, but elsewhere it's looking largely sunny and temperatures are rising as we head into the weekend. We have high pressure firmly in control across southern areas, but further north there are tighter packed isobars bringing some blustery winds and fronts bringing some outbreaks of rain, particularly to northern northwestern parts of Scotland, some central parts of Scotland having some wet weather as well. Like I said though, most other areas staying dry with lots of sunshine, and in that sunshine temperatures rising a few degrees higher than yesterday. We're looking at highs around 25-26 Celsius towards the southeast, so feeling pretty warm indeed here. Further north and west temperatures a few degrees lower than this, but still warm if you're out of the breeze and in any sunshine. More cloud, more rain to come across central and northern parts of Scotland through this evening. Aberdeenshire perhaps holding on to some clear, bright weather for a little while longer, but even here cloud will push through overnight. Cloudy but mostly dry across southern Scotland. Largely fine for Northern Ireland with some late evening sunshine, and a similar story then across the bulk of England and Wales. Worth bearing in mind, overnight there could be some pockets of mist and fog around, but they're looking pretty shallow, shouldn't cause any major problems. It is, however, going to be a bit of a fresh night with clear skies allowing temperatures to drop mid-single figures perhaps in some rural spots of England and Wales, but generally many towns and cities will hold up in double digits. And later in the night we're going to see a bit of cloud, a bit of rain pushing to parts of Northern Ireland, as well as the wet weather that continues across northwestern parts of Scotland. Through tomorrow then it is going to be fairly cloudy and wet towards the northwest of the UK. More central, southern and eastern parts staying dry, a mixture of a bit of cloud at times, some bright sunny weather as well. And with that sunshine then temperatures rising even higher than today, likely to be the first day of another heat wave for some.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M25 clockwise has an obstruction between junctions 5 and 6 in Sevenoaks, and there is a collision between junctions 11 and 12 in Chertsey. The M4 eastbound is affected by a collision between junctions 19 and 18 in Bath. Across Wales, the A4232 northbound from St Fagans to M4J33 Capel Llanil turn is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, cross-country and Great Western Railway services between Newport and Cardiff Central are reduced. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time is 4:41. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, President Donald Trump has signed a pair of executive orders aimed at restricting the rights of birthright citizenship, despite the Supreme Court's recent ruling overturning his attempt to ban it. Now, the president took aim at so-called birth tourism and insisted that his reforms were legal. I'm delighted now to be joined in the studio in Paddington by the Republicans' Overseas UK spokesperson, great friend of the channel, Jennifer Ewing. Jennifer, it's been way too long. A pleasure to have your company. Donald Trump, once again, is kind of picking at a wound that he's mined in the past, if you like. The rights that if anybody from anywhere in the world goes to America and they have a child, then the child is automatically American. He's trying to clamp down on it again.
You're right, he is. And it's not him who's trying to do this. It's what the American people voted for in November 2024. You'll remember the economy and immigration. So this is what the American people want. And what the Supreme Court did a few months ago is basically strike down what the Trump administration had gone after, which was basically they just threw everything in a wall to see what would stick. And that is about anybody born in the U.S. would get citizenship. And you'll recall that the original intention of the U.S. Constitution in the 14th Amendment was for the children of slaves. So what's he done this time with the executive order is he's narrowed it quite a bit. So it discusses like children of diplomats, which should not be controversial. Also some like terrorist things. But the most interesting thing, which I think you're alluding to, is the birthright tourism, right? And it has a lot to do with commercial surrogacy, where especially, I think 40% of it is actually from China, where people are paying women, you know, multiple six-figure sums to have their baby, and then these people set off what's called chain migration. So that baby is a U.S. citizen, and then when that baby turns 21, even if they're living back in China, in the mainland, they can then apply for U.S. visas for their family.
It's an incredible story to think about the fact that wealthy Chinese people or Russian people, those have been mostly the ones using this loophole, are paying an American couple to have their baby on American soil. And then magically, when that child is born, of course, it's automatically American. Genetically, it belongs to China or Russia. And then the parents can come along. It's an incredible loophole, and he's trying to close it down.
Yeah, exactly. So nobody should have a problem with this. First of all, I mean, it is immigration fraud, number one. Number two, it is a national security risk for, 40% of this China. A lot of them, the people in California and Florida who run these programs brag about the fact that their clients are CCP members. So, that's a little crazy. And then third of all, like, what about the children? It's a children welfare issue. So one man, a Chinese billionaire, had... and he's continuing to go. He's had over 100 babies through this service in California.
100?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's been brazenly advertised on social media.
Yeah.
There's a company called Have My Baby in Miami. They're literally brazenly advertising to wealthy people. And it's just an incredible thing. And yet the Supreme Court might push back against it. Why?
Well, I think they'll have a difficult time pushing back against this. I mean, this is just, it's too narrow. And to be honest, they were probably right to push back on that first one, regardless of what you think about, anchor babies and people needing to tighten that up, because they put so much out there. This is very tightly defined. And it's a problem for the reasons I just listed. So let's hope that this gets through.
It's an absolutely fascinating story. As you say, the 14th Amendment was rightly passed, some may say, everyone will say, to exclusively in the aftermath of the Civil War, so that to ensure that the children of slaves would be citizens in return for them being captured. But now it's a very, very different application and abuse of that law.
Well, the irony, which I hope the Supreme Court or anyone against this sees, is that the original intention of the 14th Amendment was to prevent the buying and selling of people. And here we are, right back in 2026, and it's exactly the buying and selling of people that we're talking about.
It's incredible. Jennifer Ewing, thank you very much. A fascinating story. Thanks for joining us today in the studio. Now, breaking news for you. A police manhunt is underway, we understand, after a convicted child rapist escaped from staff on an escorted community leave. And Cliff Lyons-Dobby, a restricted patient, absconded from Perth city centre today. He was convicted of raping a 10-year-old girl in Glasgow while on bail for sexually abusing a 12-year-old boy in 1990. Members of the public are warned they should not approach him. We'll have more on that breaking news story after your latest weather forecast for some of your top European destinations. Incredible.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Heat is still a big talking point across parts of Europe at the moment, as well as the fact that there's a lot of dry weather not helping with the ongoing wildfire risk in many places. For Spain, yes, there will be a few showery bursts of rain around tomorrow, but not many, and temperatures are set to rise again as we go into next week. It's still hot across Italy, and there could be some thundery downpours here and there, as well as across parts of Greece, the potential for some thundery showers here. Lots of dry weather into next week, with temperatures for some rising.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Yes, the Malaysian government has announced that it will renew the search for Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, which disappeared 10 years ago without a trace.
Yes, the plane was carrying 239 people from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Previous attempts to locate the plane have all failed, leaving the families of those on board without any kind of closure.
Well, for more on this, let's speak to Terry Tozer, a former airline pilot and author of Confessions of an Airline Pilot, Why Planes Crash. Terry, you sound like the perfect man to talk to about this, because this is perhaps the biggest aviation mystery of our modern age.
Yeah, it is, and obviously a great tragedy as well. It's good to know that they're going to have another crack at trying to find it.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is just health and safety gone mad. It's not the role of public authorities to be telling people what's for their best interest. And the reality is it's probably better to take the chance of a tree branch falling on you than going out in the sun and getting getting burnt in the sun. But the reality is the reason why these councils are saying you've got to stay out of underneath the trees is they don't want anybody to get struck by a branch which they have a liability to, whilst they don't have a liability for anybody getting sunburnt. So it's all to do with public liability. I mean, if you look at East Cheshire Council, for example, in 2024, they had to pay out £500,000 because a branch fell on somebody.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In my hand, I have a colander. I have a piece of paper. Yes, you have one too. So I'm going to run it so you can see me. So I think what you do is you shine, you indicate, you tell me what to do, and I'll do it for you.
You never look at the sun directly.
Yep,
you allow the light to go through the colander, and that'll actually act as a pinhole camera and project images of the sun onto the piece of paper, and then you can look at the piece of paper and see the eclipse take place. Simple as that. You can do it also by using binoculars or a telescope and projecting an image through from them onto a piece of paper. Yep. That will work just as well. Or get a bucket of water, let it settle, and look in the bucket of water, and you'll see the image of the sun in the water, and then you can observe the eclipse that way.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 5 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, breaking news this afternoon. The University of Cambridge will now review the process for hiring senior academics in the wake of the Jason Arday fiasco. Cambridge have confirmed that its investigation into Mr. Arday would, quote, feed into a review of the process for the appointment of senior academic roles. Some might say, what took them so long? I'm delighted now to be joined by my next guest, and that's the columnist and the broadcaster, the excellent Sonia Soda. Sonia, praise to have your company. You've written an excellent article in the Times today. It's almost like Cambridge University have been reading it.
Well, let's hope. I hope they are going to review their hiring practices properly. I'm somebody who thinks that there's definitely an issue with diversity at an institution like Cambridge, at many of our other top universities. We want to make sure that people, the very best people, are getting to be professors, regardless of their skin colour, of their class, or quite frankly, also what kind of worldview they have. But the way to do that is through genuine equality of opportunity policies, not to base basically over-promote people who aren't capable of the job, which I'm afraid it looks like exactly what happened in this case. I think they saw Jason Arday, thought he was a good poster child for diversity. With all the new things that we're learning, you know, he's made a number of claims that don't stack up. He is the subject of very serious fabrication and plagiarism allegations, and it looks like they were so excited to hire somebody that looked the part that they just didn't do their proper due diligence.
Sonia, I think you're exactly right. And you raise an excellent point in your article saying that almost they were hiring down in their expectations because they kind of saw this messianic figure, and the real people that are paying the price perhaps are genuinely brilliant academics of colour who now might get all tarred with the same brush.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think they don't all have to be tarred with the same brush.
Yeah.
I think the right thing for Cambridge and other universities to do is to sort of have a proper review and think about, well, what are we doing to lift, you know, the barriers to people achieving their talent? But it's got to be a talent-based system, and that is the problem here. And I'm afraid, I think, that when you look at this situation, obviously we'll never know exactly why the people who appointed Professor Jason Arday did, but it really looks like they've got low expectations of black academics, and that's just really grim in my view.
And it just leaves an entirely bad smell, and the cloud hanging over academia is serious. It needs to be really, really sorted out, because as you say, there needs to be a healthy reset on diversity.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, you know, this certainly isn't true of all of academia. And in fact, I think the sciences are quite immune from some of this. There are certain parts of academia and humanities and the social sciences that have just really been captured by very lazy groupthink on certain identity, ideological issues. So, you know, there are issues around race, I think, the approach to race, but also issues around gender and sex and women's rights and the conflict between women's rights and trans rights.
Right.
If you look at the treatment of gender-critical female academics, some of them in the university sector, it's been appalling. And I think that is because sections of the academic community have not
Sonia,
been true.
I'm afraid we've run out of time, but thank you,
sure.
You've been superb as ever. Thank you, Sonia. So now, Jason Arday has previously denied the allegations. He's also said, while criticism is an inevitable part of academic life, what I've experienced has gone far beyond scholarly disagreements. I will return stronger, wiser, and with the same determination that has always defined my journey. His book is due out. It could be the biggest work of fiction since 50 Shades of Grey. Now, still to come, the Tories have pledged to evict foreign nationals from social housing, but have they simply nicked reforms policy? That's next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good afternoon to you. Here from the Met Office with your latest GB News weather update. The trend with the weather that we've seen through, well, the last few weeks really, of wetter weather towards the northwest and drier, hotter weather towards the south, that looks set to continue really as we go into the weekend, with a front in the northwest continuing to bring outbreaks of rain through the rest of today, but further south, high pressure leading to lots of fine weather through this evening and overnight. Largely clear skies for the bulk of England and Wales. Some clearer breaks perhaps for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but with those clearer skies over England and Wales, it is going to be a bit of a fresh night. Widely, temperatures falling to low double digits, and some prime rural spots could get to mid-single figures, so a bit fresh in some places. Now, it is going to be cloudier across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, and here there will be some rain at times first thing tomorrow morning as well. Similar to today, really, the heaviest, most persistent rain will initially be across parts of northwest Scotland, but we will also see some outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland, and some southern parts of Scotland could see a bit of rain through the morning as well. Further south for England and Wales, watch out, there could be the odd pocket of mist and fog first thing, but this will burn away quite quickly, and then it's looking largely fine. Not necessarily all that sunny first thing, but plenty of bright weather, and it is going to be dry through the morning here. Further towards the northwest, we're staying quite wet through into the afternoon, but that rain does edge a little bit further south and eastwards across more parts of Scotland, perhaps into northern England later on. Central, southern parts of the country, however, staying fine and dry and hotter than today, with temperatures peaking in the very high 20s towards the southeast. It's worth bearing in mind there could be 1 or 2 showers across parts of the southwest through tomorrow, but on the whole, much of England and Wales will stay dry with the wetter weather across Scotland and Northern Ireland. It's also going to be quite wet in the north on Sunday, but we're going to see temperatures rising even further in the south. A good chance we'll get into the low 30s.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M4 eastbound is affected by a collision between junctions 10 and 8 near Maidenhead. The M11 southbound is also affected by a collision between junctions 8 and 7A in Harlow. In Scotland, the M8 eastbound has 3 lanes restricted at the Clyde Tunnel turnoff near junction 25. Across Wales, the A4232 northbound from St Fagans to M4J33 Capel Llanilturn is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, cross-country and Great Western Railway services are reduced between Newport and Cardiff Central, with disruption on various routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome to Orla Santi by Domes Resorts, where we're celebrating with an incredible £60,000 to be won. Plus, we'll give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000. Don't miss your chance to win over £65,000 worth of prizes.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you and a happy Friday. It's 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you until 6 p.m. A cracking show awaits, and here's what's on today's show. Top story this afternoon, the Conservative Party have today pledged to evict 230,000 foreign nationals from British social housing to prioritise Brits and stop Britain becoming the world's cash machine. But Nigel Farage has blasted the policy as a Reform UK rip-off, saying the Tories copy every policy of ours. They are frauds. And the Labour Party's Angela Rayner has also put the boot in, claiming the policy could make NHS workers homeless. We'll have all the details and the reaction to this astonishing social housing civil war. And breaking news this afternoon, monstrous convicted sex offender Simon Levy has been found guilty of murdering 2 women and raping a third, and that's just months after the police lowered his risk level to the public. And a glut of asylum seeker HMOs in Mansfield has left locals furious and frightened. And with the uncontrolled infiltration being dubbed 4 years of hell, locals have witnessed rising antisocial behaviour, overgrown front lawns, fly tipping and overflowing bins. We'll be live from the former mining town besieged by a very modern problem.
A pack of pork scratchies in a pub 2 weeks ago. Wow. Yeah.
Now this is a balm, and no one can tell me otherwise.
I go to a lot of gigs, I do like a pint, and I have been known to give a DJ set from time to time.
Seriously, who cares? With his obsessions with football, pubs and pork scratchings, Andy Burnham's social media team has claimed he is too blokey. To broaden his appeal, the TikTok wizards at the Labour Party, well, they claim he needs to be more like Keir Starmer. That's right, the least popular Prime Minister in history. Here's a question. Should the Prime Minister go woke or go bloke? And British winemakers are raising a glass to the heat wave of 2026, claiming it will create an extraordinary vintage year of superb British plonk. Now, with extreme droughts in France causing the worst champagne grape crops in history, has the heat wave put the fizz back into British booze? Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company on this Friday afternoon. A social housing civil war has kicked off. The Tories today claiming that they will evict 230,000 foreigners who've been given a social house. But there's a twist to the story. Over 350,000 social houses were given away by the Conservatives during their 14 years in power. This policy, if it's enacted, won't even put it right. And was it lifted straight from the Reform Party? I'm about to be joined by Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, who will echo the sentiments of Nigel Farage, who earlier on today claimed the Tories copy every policy of ours. They are frauds. It's all kicking off, and it's about to happen here next on GB News. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so, or scan the QR code on your screens now. But now here's the news headlines with the man with the best hair in news, Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good evening to you. The top story tonight at 5. A convicted sex offender described as a jobless loner has been found guilty of murdering 2 women, raping a third and sexually assaulting others on public transport after a series of what has been described as disastrous police, prosecution and court decisions that left him free to roam the streets. 40-year-old Simon Levy killed Carmenza Valencia Tudilo in March and Cheryl Wilkins last year while on bail for separate sex attacks on trains. The Met has admitted that Miss Wilkins' life could have been saved after Levy's risk to women was downgraded before the attacks. The Old Bailey heard he carried out calculated, cruel and deeply disturbing attacks on vulnerable women in secluded areas of the capital after years of sexual offending on women in public places. Well, the police watchdog is now investigating alleged failures by Met officers in how Levy was managed after his release from prison. One constable has been served a gross misconduct notice and a detective sergeant has been served a misconduct notice. Earlier, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner for the Met Police, Kevin Southworth, said that Levy was a prolific serial sexual predator, finally brought to justice, but too late for his victims.
His behaviour is self-evidently that of a very prolific serial sexual predator who seeks his sexual gratification in a number of ways, whether it's opportunistically offending against strangers on the underground system, or whether it's targeting sex workers in the most horrific and harrowing fashion. So I think ultimately what we're talking about here is a serial sexual predator who's finally been brought to justice, but ultimately one too late to help the victims.
Next to news in Scotland, where police have launched an urgent manhunt for a convicted child rapist who escaped from staff in Perth city centre this morning. Cliff Lyons-Dobby was convicted of raping a 10-year-old girl in Glasgow while on bail for sexually abusing a 12-year-old boy in 1990. Police say the public should not approach him and call officers immediately with any sightings. Asylum seekers have been removed from properties in Thetford for their own safety after a third night of anti-immigration unrest. Norfolk Police says 2 more people were arrested last night following disorder in the town. It comes after officers were subjected to significant aggression on Wednesday, with one hit by a rock, another bitten and a third spat at. The Chief Constable says anyone involved in the disorder will face the full force of the law. The senior officer who investigated the death of PC Andrew Harper says he is appalled that two of the men jailed over the case could be released early. PC Harper was just 28 when he died from catastrophic injuries after being dragged behind a getaway car during a quad bike theft in 2019. Jesse Cole and Albert Bowers are due to become eligible for early release next year under revised government plans to tackle prison overcrowding. PC Harper's widow, Lizzie Harper, is among a growing number calling for them to be denied any early release. The Conservatives have pledged today to end council housing for foreign nationals. Kemi Badenoch says the policy would evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households from social housing. The party also says foreign nationals would be barred from new council tenancies in future. Well, the Shadow Minister Helen Whatley says the move would free up homes for British people and to help reduce the country's rising welfare bill.
Foreign nationals, if they're choosing to live in the UK, should be contributing to the UK economy. They shouldn't be claiming benefits and they shouldn't be living in social housing, which is limited. There's a limited supply of social housing, and that should be there, like the welfare system, as a safety net for British citizens. So what we're saying for foreign nationals who are currently living in social housing is instead you should do what, to be clear, the majority of the population of the UK do, which is find your own accommodation and pay your own way.
In response, though, Immigration Minister Anna Turley insists that local authorities are already prioritising local residents and British people for social housing.
No asylum seekers are eligible for social housing. As we've seen from the situation in Norfolk, they are going to be housed in military bases, in places where we can contain people and protect our communities. That is the process. And then at the moment, a number of local authorities already prioritise local residents, British people, when they're claiming their right to social housing. And look, the reality that the only people who can access social housing are people who genuinely have a right to be here. They are settled, they are claiming citizenship. So I think it's important that they are actually integrating into our communities, that they are part of society, and you know, it's important that we're able to do that.
West Streeting has denied taking money linked to jailed cryptocurrency fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried. The new Defence Secretary says he is absolutely confident money used to support his office while he was in opposition did not come from the entrepreneur. Reports suggest that Bankman-Fried gave almost £500,000 to the founder of Labour for the Long Term, which later funded Mr Streeting's office. But West Streeting says due diligence was carried out. The donors did not include Bankman-Fried and he has, quote, never met the guy. And in Thailand, at least 7 people have been killed and 23 left injured after a 14-year-old boy opened fire at his home and school on the outskirts of Bangkok. The Prime Minister there says the teenager killed his grandparents before attacking his school, where 5 teachers were shot dead. 9 people remain in a critical condition, and police are saying the teenager still had more than 30 bullets left before he turned the gun on himself. Those are tonight's headlines. More news shortly. Now, though, let's get back to Martin.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Thank you, Sam. To our top story this afternoon, the Conservative Party have today pledged to end council housing for foreign nationals. Yes, under the new policy, Kemi Badenoch has vowed to evict almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households, whilst all foreigners will be barred from any new tenancies. However, Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, has blasted the policy as a Reform UK rip-off, saying the Tories copy every policy of ours. They are frauds. And besides, well, the Conservatives are actually responsible for creating this crisis. Let's take a look at some data that I've collated today for you here at GB News. As you can see on your screens, for the past 13 years they were in power, the Tories gave away nearly 400,000 social houses to foreigners. And in the year 2023 to 2024 alone, of course, that'd be peak Boris wave, they allocated over 33,000 homes to those born overseas. Now, all of those houses, as you can see on your screen, over half of them were allocated to people born outside of the European Economic Area. And as you can see, 48% went to EU nationals. It's almost like Brexit. Look, 48-52, a great giveaway of over 350,000 houses, 389,000 in fact. Well, let's now speak with the former... No, I'm joined actually in the studio by Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Richard, welcome to the studio.
Good afternoon.
A pleasure to have your... What's your take on Kemi Badenoch looking at some of your work, perhaps?
Well, once again, the Tories are so desperate that they are copying reform policy, whether it is on leaving the ECHR, scrapping net stupid zero, and now on social housing. And all of a sudden, Kemi and her colleagues, they're literally the clowns who were the arsonists, but now saying, don't worry, we can be the firefighters, trust us, trust us. They literally created the crisis that you've just mentioned. And in that last year, 22-24, 33,000 homes going to foreign nationals. That's literally 50% of all the social houses built in any 1 year. And our policy is very clear. No foreign nationals would be allowed to live in social housing that was built for British citizens. That's the key point. Whereas what the Tories are saying is, oh no, if you're a member of the EU, then you can stay. And in other words, they want to copy reform policy, but we're a little bit scared. We can't quite get there. Please don't be nasty to us. We're the nice Tories. I mean, it's ridiculous. It really is.
Angela Rayner has waded in both to the Conservatives and to Reform UK today, saying that such policies will make refugees homeless. And that would include NHS staff, non-British citizens being kicked out of their houses, comparing it to Donald Trump ICE-style raids, calling the policies inhumane.
Well, let's just remember, if she's talking about asylum seekers who come from France, they are illegals. They literally broke the law, leaving a safe country and invading the United Kingdom. And the British people are sick and tired of our money, our taxes, our homes being given to people from overseas when actually, do you know what? Charity begins at home. And everybody's finding life very tough at the moment. Lots of people say, where are my children going to live? And the answer traditionally was that you would start in affordable housing, social housing, and council house. You then had the right to buy your council house at a discount. That's how so many people got on the housing ladder. British citizens born in this country. But oh no, the Tories messed it up over the last 13 years, like they broke the whole country. They literally broke Britain. And now they're saying, trust us to sort it because Reform have got some good ideas, we'll copy them.
What do you respond, though, to the allegation by Angela Rayner saying this is an unserious, unworkable proposal, the Conservative one, but copied from Reform? It would do nothing to tackle the housing crisis and would actually create an epidemic of homelessness.
She's right that the Tories are unserious because they talk the talk, but they would never actually do what they say. Whereas actually we mean it and we will do what we say. That's the big difference. And I just come back to the key point. The reason that, we're still winning elections every week is because people trust us to do what we say on this stuff. And they actually want... they want our council housing, our social housing, our affordable housing to be for British citizens, for our children and grandchildren. That's the difference. And Angela Rayner is panicking because she realises that she can't do this, even though it's actually what your traditional, socially conservative Labour voter would expect and demand from a Labour government.
OK, thank you very much. Richard Tice, stick with us. I will get my next guest in now, and that is the former Member of Parliament for Don Valley, Nick Fletcher. Nick, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Well, it certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons. It's offended Nigel Farage, and it's offended Richard Tice, and it's offended Angela Rayner. A lot of people are saying it bears more than a passing resemblance to a policy brought out by Reform UK 55 days ago.
It may be so. I'm not 100% certain about that. But look, everyone can understand it. Everyone will agree the fact that social housing is a scarce resource. It's a taxpayer-funded resource. and it should be going to British citizens first. How we actually do that, the devil will be in the detail. Obviously, there's going to be some people that, as I say, have been here for 20 years, and evicting people who've been here for 20 years is not the right thing to do. But as I say, most people will agree with this policy, and I do believe it's broadly right.
But do you accept the notion that it's taken from Reform UK? I mean, that's not me being mischievous. Literally, on June the 13th this year, Nigel Farage launched a policy saying that I will evict foreign nationals from council housing, and today the Tories have proposed the same thing.
Well, I mean, I could say exactly the same thing here in Doncaster. We've got a Reform Council, and all Reform Council are doing is putting in policies that I put in my manifesto. If they're a good policy, then they're good for the country, then everybody should get behind it. I think there's obviously a lot more to this than what the Conservatives have put together than just simply say evict people. I think we have to be very, very careful with that. But I do agree with the fact that British citizens should come first with a taxpayer-funded resource like council housing. And who came up with this idea first and who came up with that idea first? We can all get offended and we can all get very silly about it. The fact of the matter is there's a problem and we need to sort it. Labour won't sort it, and at this moment in time the opposition is Kemi Badenoch. Her voice carries the weight, and she said this is what she's going to do. And if she governs like she speaks, I keep telling people, we will have a country that will turn around.
OK, Nick, let's look at the next allegation now. It's factual observation. The Conservatives are pledging to evict 230,000 foreign nationals, and yet in 14 years in power you gave away 389,449 new social housing lettings in England alone to those born overseas. This is the problem that the Conservatives created. And now you want to be lauded for not even solving it, because if you enacted this policy in its entirety, the full ticket, the full 230,000, there would still be 160,000 foreign nationals in social housing put there by the Conservatives.
No, there's no point in denying the facts. The facts are the facts. And as I say, I mean, Kemi's looked at what's happened over the last 14 years, and she's literally saying something completely different. She realised that the mistakes were made. When I walked into Parliament in 2019, the first thing that I asked for was for a cap on immigration. I knew what a problem it was. I know the lived experience of people in Doncaster. Housing is a scarce resource, whether it's in the private sector or in the social sector. We are literally destroying this country with the amount of people that are here and the resources that we've not got for them. We're in a huge amount of debt. It's going to take radical change. And I believe Kemi has seen this and she's putting forward some good policies. And I came up with the idea first. I think it's all a little bit childish. We just need to press on, move forward, get people to realise that this is not turning our backs on foreign nationals. This is not people being racist. This is not people being xenophobic. It's just literally a realisation that we have got a housing problem and we need to sort it.
OK, Nick Fletcher, can I put to you the allegation from the Housing Secretary, Angela Rayner, who has blasted the policy, both the Conservative and the Reform policy, saying that this will target refugees. It will target long-term UK residents who have contributed to this country but are not British citizens, including NHS staff, and it could be responsible for driving a wave of homelessness.
If Angela Rayner wants to complain about this policy, I'm pretty sure she's got enough houses. She can put some refugees in herself. Unfortunately, this never happens. The people that continually keep on saying we must accept, we must have more and more refugees. When you ask them to house them themselves, they always got an excuse not to. It's not right, it's not fair. We have to stop this happening now, because we're at a crisis point in this country. The young people are the ones that are really, really suffering. They cannot get on the housing ladder whatsoever. And as I say, these refugees, I agree with what Richard Tice said, there are a huge amount of these are illegal refugees. And they're coming here from France, which is a safe country. It has to stop.
Nick Fletcher, I think I can say that was one of the comebacks of the week, if not the month. Thank you very much. Superb stuff to have you on the show there. The former Member of Parliament for Don Valley, Nick Fletcher. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, back to the studio now, and Richard Tice. There's a dramatic breaking news story. It's a top story, in fact, on GBNews.com. Let me just read out the headline to get your reaction to it, if I could. And it's this. Nigel Farage has taken the National Crime Agency to the High Court as the Reform UK leader seeks £25,000 damages over leaked bank transactions. Tell us about this.
So actually, this is both Nigel and myself separately have today issued writs in the High Court against the National Crime Agency. We believe that they have leaked bank statements, details of bank transfers, details of private conversations between myself and respective bank managers from different banks that I have, and this is confidential information. They have literally, as the most senior crime agency in the land, committed multiple criminal offences, and we gave them about 5 weeks to carry out a quick investigation. They've asked for more time. We've said enough. You're not taking it seriously. We're done with it. We're suing you. They're responsible for causing serious damages, and that figure that you mentioned is actually just more than that. It'll be quantified in due course. But if they think that they can just treat us like rubbish and dirt, then they've got another thing coming. They're arguing with the wrong people.
OK, Richard Tice, of course, those are very, very serious allegations. I understand that the National Crime Agency are denying that they are the source of the leak, and we will go to them to try and get some response. But Richard Tice, thank you for coming to see us today at GB News. I appreciate your time. Thank you, sir. Now, still to come, a glut of asylum seeker HMOs in Mansfield, a place I know very well, has left locals furious and frightened. We'll be there next. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me. What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:25 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News on this beautiful Friday afternoon. Now to our next story. A glut of asylum seeker HMOs in Mansfield, a town I know very well, has left locals furious and frightened. With the uncontrolled infiltration being dubbed 4 years of hell, locals have witnessed rising antisocial behaviour, overgrown front lawns, fly tipping and overflowing bins. Well, I'm delighted now to speak with the property landlord and the developer, James Holmes. James, welcome to the show. James, I understand you're one of the biggest private landlords in the Mansfield area. You'll understand this situation very, very well. Tell us about what you're observing in your town.
Well, thank you for having me on again, Martin. So I've created 81 new apartments in Mansfield on brownfield sites. So I'm not in the HMO market. But what I can tell you is that a lot of these problems, particularly with rubbish, are actually caused by the the district council, which is Mansfield District Council, which is a Labour-controlled council. Their refuse collection guys and their refuse collection departments, because they make it so incredibly difficult that you'll get tenants, even in the blocks of flats, that will not put the lid down on a bin, will put a bag on the floor. More mixed waste. So, because we're in bigger blocks, I have people go the night before, but still the following morning, somebody could have chucked a bag on the floor and then the refuse collectors will refuse to pick them up. Now, that's not quite the same in an HMO, because an HMO might only have, or generally, it's 3 or more unrelated people, but the small ones that are in houses and maybe 5 separate sets of people. So nobody really takes any ownership for making sure that those bins are sorted correctly, like maybe an owner would. So the same applies in blocks of flats, but it's easier to have one of my guys go to a block of flats and then deal with it. We have this so often where we'll then bring up the cameras. We have cameras on overlooking our bins, and we will say, well, look here, your guys didn't even go to them. Or look, there was one bag on the floor.
Okay,
say,
James.
Oh, well, we can't do that because of health and safety.
OK, James, aside from the specific issue of garbage and whatnot, which of course is the concern, it can create health problems, rats, and it's just horrible and stinky and unsightly. There are, of course, other social concerns in the area. Now, we've been in Mansfield earlier on. Sophie Reaper, our reporter there, was speaking to some locals. Let's listen to what they told us at GB News.
There's been reports of antisocial behaviour, things like that. Have you noticed anything like that?
Mansfield's always been a bit like that, to be fair, but every town gets its fair share of that. But yeah, it does seem to be getting worse. A lot of places seem to be getting worse.
Well, I don't think I'd ever want to move here. Seriously, would you? I don't know.
Well, it were a really nice town. Mansfield in its day, it were lovely. Do you know what I mean?
Changed.
It's like
obviously,
you go 1 week and there's something, then you go a week after and it's closed, isn't it?
Government as well as the local council should make sure that there's no fly tipping, there's people are being caught and prosecuted for fly tipping, and all this antisocial behaviour should be, and they should be held accountable.
It seems like there's lots more people, lots more antisocial behaviour. I don't know if that's because of like a housing crisis, but then to combat that, I've seen a lot of information on Facebook about HMOs popping up.
James Holmes, you heard there the concerns of locals, and let's be brutally frank. You know, Mansfield is a former mining town, an area I know well. My dad was down the pit, that fell on harder times and was never reinvigorated, never had the investment it required. As a consequence, property prices fell, and the cheap housing has been scooped up by the Home Office, by Serco. We've seen it all across industrial working class Britain, and asylum seekers are being pumped into areas. James, it's not acceptable that this is happening to towns like Mansfield.
Yeah, so what you've also got to view, not just the immigration issue, which I'll explain that in a second, what you tend to find is that the type of people that will live in HMOs tend to be in the lower demographics anyway. It's the best they can afford. And as we all know, that then also tends to mean that you get more antisocial behaviour. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody by any measure, but you can see that in other areas as well. If you go to Sheffield, Page Hall, Firth Vale, Firth Park, where there's rubbish strewn all over the streets anyway, and that's just in houses, around houses. Now, that is a lot more because that's an immigration area. But lots of the people that end up in HMOs tend to not be families, tend to be individuals, and these have existed before the mass immigrant crisis. But what you've also find is these online courses, property courses, promote people to do HMOs because they say that they're very profitable. The reality is one bad tenant in an HMO of 4 or 5 is where all the profit is, and therefore that the landlord, they don't realise that how difficult it is to run HMOs. So then when you get a government agency that will come to you and say, we'll take this off you and we'll guarantee the rent in all 5 of those bedrooms, 10, whatever it is, that's very tempting for a landlord. Like I said, I'm not in it, I'm not condoning it, but I'm very aware of how it is. Okay. And if you go on a slightly bigger issue as well, the bigger houses that were converted into HMOs, if you look at it now, the average size of homes in the of households in the UK has become smaller, both because we won't give planning to build bigger houses because of the cost of land, but also people can't afford the bigger houses. So whilst we have got blended families that might have 4 or 5 kids because sometimes they're with the mother, sometimes they're with the father, a lot of people cannot actually afford to maintain these bigger houses like you would have had in the 50s and 60s.
All right, James,
so they naturally get lent to this.
James, fascinating, but listen, we have to move on because I've got a breaking news story for you here. Property landlord and developer there in Mansfield, James Holmes, thank you very much for your time. As I said, we do have a breaking news story for now, and it's this. The Metropolitan Police has now just released some new footage of the serial sex offender Simon Levi's arrest. Let's get that on our screens now, you can see. A jury at the Old Bailey found Levi guilty of the murders of 2 women, the rape of a 3rd, and for sexually assaulting others on public transport. We have to interject here that Levi had been downgraded by the Metropolitan Police as a risk to women before he carried out those attacks. You can see the fresh imagery now just released of this monster's arrest. Metropolitan Police have just released this footage, and the police watchdog has since announced that it is now investigating, quotes, alleged failures of Metropolitan Police officers in their management. So fresh footage on your screens you can see there now of the arrest of this serial pervert, predator, killer, rapist. There he is, Simon Levi. He'd already committed heinous acts, and somehow, somebody, somewhere, downgraded his risk, and he went on to kill 2 women and rape a 3rd. How that happened is a question that needs to be asked very, very loudly to the police, to all of the services involved, the Crown Prosecution Service. This monster should never have been freed to be committing these crimes, and 2 women have now lost their lives, and another had it irreparably destroyed by this sex-crazed predator. New footage there on your screens of the arrest of the serial sex offender Simon Levi. You can see there a jury at the Old Bailey found Levi guilty of the murders of 2 women and the rape of a 3rd, and for sexually assaulting others on public transport. And yet, his threat to the public had previously been downgraded. More on that grotesque breaking news story throughout the rest of the show. But for now, here's your traffic and your travel update. Stay safe and stick with us.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M4 eastbound is affected by a collision at junction 8 in Maidenhead. The M1 southbound has an obstruction between junctions 33 and 32 in Thurcroft. In Scotland, the A78 between Dunlop Street and A8 Ratho Street is closed in both directions for planned roadworks. Across Wales, the A4232 northbound from St Fagans to M4 J33 Capel Llanilturn is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, cross-country and Great Western Railway services are reduced between Newport and Cardiff Central, with disruption on various routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com. Very good evening. You're with GB News. More from Martin shortly. First, though, the headlines. A convicted sex offender described as a jobless loner has been found guilty of murdering 2 women, raping a third and sexually assaulting others on public transport. 40-year-old Simon Levy killed Carmenza Valencia Trujillo and Cheryl Watkins in London last year while being monitored by police and while on bail for separate sex attacks. It comes after what have been described as a series of disastrous police, prosecution and court decisions that left him free to roam the streets. The Conservatives are pledging today to end council housing for foreign nationals. Under the policy, Kemi Badenoch says almost 230,000 non-EU foreign national households would be evicted and barred from new tenancies. Asylum seekers in Thetford have been removed from properties there for their own safety after a third night of anti-immigration unrest. 2 more people were arrested last night after police said crowds tried to storm homes linked to asylum seekers and officers were assaulted. Meta has been ordered to pay more than £420 million to address harm caused to children on its platforms. A judge compared the owner of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp to a factory, saying the psychological harm and sexual exploitation of children was pollution that must be cleaned up. And in Thailand, at least 7 people have died after a school shooting there. Officials say the suspected gunman was a 14-year-old student who shot his grandparents and school teachers before being found dead. Those are the latest headlines here on GB News. Martin will be straight back with you after this.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, very good afternoon to you. Here from the Met Office with your latest GB News weather update. The trend with the weather that we've seen through, well, the last few weeks really, of wetter weather towards the northwest and drier, hotter weather towards the south, that looks set to continue really as we go into the weekend, with a front in the northwest continuing to bring outbreaks of rain through the rest of today, but further south, high pressure leading to lots of fine weather through this evening and overnight. Largely clear skies for the bulk of England and Wales. Some clearer breaks perhaps for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but with those clearer skies over England and Wales, it is going to be a bit of a fresh night. Widely, temperatures falling to low double digits and some prime rural spots could get to mid-single figures, so a bit fresh in some places. Now, it is going to be cloudier across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, and here there will be some rain at times first thing tomorrow morning as well. Similar to today, really, the heaviest, most persistent rain will initially be across parts of northwest Scotland, but we will also see some outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland, and some southern parts of Scotland could see a bit of rain through the morning as well. Further south for England and Wales, watch out, there could be the odd pocket of mist and fog first thing, but this will burn away quite quickly, and then it's looking largely fine. Not necessarily all that sunny first thing, but plenty of bright weather, and it is going to be dry through the morning here. Further towards the northwest, we're staying quite wet through into the afternoon, but that rain does edge a little bit further south and eastwards across more parts of Scotland, perhaps into northern England later on. Central southern parts of the country, however, staying fine and dry and hotter than today, with temperatures peaking in the very high 20s towards the southeast. It's worth bearing in mind there could be 1 or 2 showers across parts of the southwest through tomorrow, but on the whole, much of England and Wales will stay dry with the wetter weather across Scotland and Northern Ireland. It's also going to be quite wet in the north on Sunday, but we're going to see temperatures rising even further in the south. A good chance we'll get into the low 30s. Bye-bye.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. It is exactly 20 to 6. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Andy Burnham, the Prime Minister, has reportedly been told by Downing Street to tone down his so-called blokish social media presence, including references to football and the pub.
Just hang around the 6-yard box and I just wait for the chance to stick it away. I'm a typical politician on the football pitch. I let others do all of the hard work and I'm just waiting for the glory up front.
Well, I'm joined in the studio by the political presentation coach, Graham Davis. Graham, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure, as ever, to have your company. Now, the social media wizards at the Labour Party, they seem to think that what we really need in this time of £3 trillion national debt, of open borders, of HMO crisis, is a Prime Minister telling us what crisps he likes.
Well, incredibly, the Burnham regime so far has been a study in supreme superficiality, conveyed almost exclusively on social media. He hasn't been able to do anything other than skate across the surface of those important issues. He hasn't offered a single smart, specific solution. He's had no time to think of what to do about immigration, but he has had time to create at least 39 TikTok videos. That is the situation we're left with now.
And he's been hiring people left, right and centre who, by the way, are being paid more than nurses to do his social media accounts. And GB News, we were asking the Prime Minister for days on end, what are you going to do about the small boats invasion? And instead, this came out.
Real pork scratching. This looks good. Bit old school, but we're quite old school, aren't we, me and you? When did you last buy a pack of pork scratchings in a pub? 2 weeks ago.
Now, you could argue it makes the Prime Minister more relatable. Do you prefer frazzles, scampi fries or pork scratchings? But now he's being told to tone all this down. He's being told to be more like Sir Keir Starmer, the least popular Prime Minister in history.
There's talk that there's been at least 50 people recruited over the last 24 hours to this GMU, the Government Media Unit. Soon it'll be more populous than the Ministry of Defence and perhaps better funded and probably more drones. But essentially, even they, this gaggle of sensei gurus, have decided that this diamond geezer down with the lads shouldn't just be in the pub talking about snacks. At last, even they believe he should be talking more about public spending than pork scratchings.
And they've said he should be more like Sir Keir Starmer. Lest we forget, let's take a little look at this chestnut where the then Prime Minister presented some pancakes to Rachel Reeves.
Chancellor, I've got something for you.
Oh, very good.
Come in.
You all right?
Very good.
Is this your box?
Happy Pancake Day.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Are you going to have one as well?
I like it. That's what I keep in here.
Very good.
Happy Pancake Day. Have you always forgotten that Sir Keir Starmer was our Prime Minister only 3 weeks ago? But on a serious point, Graham, what's going on? Why are they trying to repackage politicians? We're in a serious situation. We're in a pickle. Don't we need serious solutions from serious politicians? Not videos about pork scratchings and pancakes.
Burnham is doing it for two reasons. Social media can be a very comprehensive one-way conduit, a way of conveying a policy, a communication, a direction for a particular regime.
Yeah.
If you turn off the reply button on TikTok, suddenly it becomes an absolute one-way motorway. And of course, it's much easier to announce things on social media than it is to do it in the House of Commons.
There's no scrutiny.
And in a press conference, there's even more scrutiny from broadcast journalists. So it stops any immediate comeback.
It's facile, it's shallow.
It's shallow, and he's good at shallow. And that brings me on to the second reason. It does play into one of his strengths. Now, I'm not talking about that joshing with Healy, where they come across as two geography teachers trying to get down and being too cool with the kids. And I'm not talking about cosy podcast interviews either, where he does lots of umming and erring and devil's donuts, and that is where he starts an answer to a question, goes around in a circle, ends up in exactly the same place with nothing of value in the middle. That's the donut. I'm talking about one particular thing where he does have a superpower. We're living in an era where politicians of all persuasions find doing pieces to camera very difficult without looking like proof of life hostage videos.
Yeah.
His are very good. He scripts them quite well, does short sentences, manages to do them without flubber-dubs or ums and ers, and he says the first sentence with enough intensity and conviction so that you want to hear the second sentence and you want to hear the third sentence, and so on and so on. For a short period of time, he's like that character Car the Snake in Jungle Book. Yeah. Because even though I'm not aligned with his views at all, I could feel myself being drawn closer to my phone. Now, the snake spell only lasts about 45 seconds. But if he can get his views across in that time, he can be very compelling.
Graham Davis, fascinating stuff. Maybe I'm completely missing the point. Top man. Thank you very much indeed, Graham Davis. Now, coming up next, British winemakers are raising a glass to the heat wave of 2026 because they're claiming it will create an extraordinary, unstoppable, record-breaking vintage year of British Blanc, and I'll be drinking a glass to that. First, though, here's a forecast for some of your top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Heat is still a big talking point across parts of Europe at the moment, as well as the fact that there's a lot of dry weather not helping with the ongoing wildfire risk in many places. For Spain, yes, there will be a few showery bursts of rain around tomorrow, but not many, and temperatures are set to rise again as we go into next week. It's still hot across Italy, and there could be some thundery downpours here and there, as well as across parts of Greece, the potential for some thundery showers here. Lots of dry weather into next week, with temperatures for some rising.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
4 heat waves, weeks without meaningful rain. As the UK heads towards one of its hottest summers on record, the pressure is showing here in Sussex, in the fruit growing across these fields.
Well, the impact of the heat is already visible here. This local grower says that if these extreme temperatures continue, this year's harvest may well be smaller in size.
I don't think there's been another period like this in the history. 3 years ago, we had a tremendous heat wave in the middle of harvest. We were unable to get the fruit to cool down quickly enough. The following year we had a very, very light crop, and the same again this year.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's only all-female chess team, called She Plays to Win, has been promoted to the game's top division, only to be told they must recruit a male player to compete. Now, league rules require every First Division team to include at least one male and one female player, meaning that one of the team's female players could lose her place. I'm joined in the studio by the She Plays to Win chess players, Anusha and Alicia. Great to see you both this afternoon.
Thank you.
So sorry about what's going on. You've been promoted, but you might have to lose one of your teammates. What's going on here?
So essentially, we have fallen victim to this rule that She Plays to Win, our team, has been promoted to the First Division in our league, but now must have a male player as part of the rules.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, that drought is due to long periods, record periods actually, with no rainfall and high temperatures. The areas that are affected, as you say, over half of England, half of the UK affected by that. The areas being East Anglia, Hertfordshire, the whole of London, Thames Valley, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, Devon and Cornwall, the West Midlands and Wessex, covering Dorset, Somerset, Wiltshire and Gloucestershire. So a huge area impacted by that drought. There is also that amber heat health alert still in place here. That's in place until tomorrow. And temperatures today in the south could reach up to 35 degrees. So people here in Bognor Regis coming to the coast to cool down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 6 on this Friday afternoon. You with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, great news. English winemakers are reaping the rewards of this summer's hot heat wave as the sun intensifies the flavours and the quality of British grapes. Now, it's raising hopes that 2026 could be one of Britain's best ever vintage years. Superb news. Let's now speak with the owner and the managing director of the Aldwick Estates Vineyard, and that's Sandy Luck. Sandy, oh, look at that beautiful sight behind you. Your vines seem to be groaning under the weight of fruit, and I'm assuming, Sandy, you're very excited about the harvest and getting that lot fermenting away.
Yeah, it's a really special year. It's lovely. We've had obviously it's nice to be working out in the vineyard in this weather as well. So the risk of disease, etc., is much better because we haven't got the wet days, and the sunshine is really helping ripen the grapes. So the grapes behind me are Regent. They're going through the veraison stage, which is when the green turns to red, and some of this will be going into our rosé.
And Sandy, of course, all of that delicious sunshine is turning those starches into sugars. That makes it sweeter, it makes it better to ferment. And of course, the great news for Britain is bad news for France. Record droughts there have had terrible harvests of champagne grapes. That gives British fizz a leg up, but you can't wait to taste it.
Yeah, no, it's all really exciting stuff this year. With the riper and the higher sugars in the grapes, we've got much more flexibility to what we make. So here at Aldwick, we make the whole range from sparkling to rosés, whites, and we do make red in the good years. So this is certainly a good year. So we're going to be making plenty of Pinot Noir this year, for sure.
Sandy, I'm listening to you speaking. I'm looking at these glasses swirling around. I'm looking at those grapes behind you. I'm listening to you, and I'm getting very, very thirsty. And may I add, I did say to my team here, get me a bottle of English wine, and nobody did. Sandy, they're fired. But for now,
I'll make sure I send you one.
Sandy, look, I wish you all the very, very best of luck. I hope you have a fantastic harvest and you get some cracking wine out there. Sandy, look, thank you very, very much indeed. Cheers to you. Thank you, Sandy. Didn't that look magnificent? A British vineyard. Who said global warming is a terrible thing? Look at it. It's like we're living in the Mediterranean. Let's embrace it. That's enough for me this week. I'll be back 3 p.m. on Monday. As I said, thank you again to all the wonderful viewers and listeners I met last night in Essex. You really are the very, very best of British. I'm off now. 6 p.m. next. Tubes & Co. tonight, hosted by the magnificent Dawn Neeson. Have a great weekend.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good afternoon to you. Here from the Met Office with your latest GB News weather update. The trend with the weather that we've seen through, well, the last few weeks really, of wetter weather towards the northwest and drier, hotter weather towards the south, that looks set to continue really as we go into the weekend, with a front in the northwest continuing to bring outbreaks of rain through the rest of today, but further south, high pressure leading to lots of fine weather through this evening and overnight. Largely clear skies for the bulk of England and Wales. Some clearer breaks perhaps for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but with those clearer skies over England and Wales, it is going to be a bit of a fresh night. Widely, temperatures falling to low double digits, and some prime rural spots could get to mid-single figures, so a bit fresh in some places. Now, it is going to be cloudier across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, and here there will be some rain at times first thing tomorrow morning as well. Similar to today, really, the heaviest, most persistent rain will initially be across parts of northwest Scotland, but we will also see some outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland, and some southern parts of Scotland could see a bit of rain through the morning as well. Further south for England and Wales, watch out, there could be the odd pocket of mist and fog first thing, but this will burn away quite quickly, and then it's looking largely fine. Not necessarily all that sunny first thing, but plenty of bright weather, and it is going to be dry through the morning here. Further towards the northwest, we're staying quite wet through into the afternoon, but that rain does edge a little bit further south and eastwards across more parts of Scotland, perhaps into northern England later on. Central southern parts of the country, however, staying fine and dry and hotter than today, with temperatures peaking in the very high 20s towards the southeast. It's worth bearing in mind there could be 1 or 2 showers across parts of the southwest through tomorrow, but on the whole, much of England and Wales will stay dry with the wetter weather across Scotland and Northern Ireland. It's also going to be quite wet in the north on Sunday, but we're going to see temperatures rising even further in the south. A good chance we'll get into the low 30s.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M5 southbound has a collision between junctions 26 and 27 in Cullompton, with delays of around 35 minutes. The M4 westbound has a reported collision between junctions 13 and 14 in Newbury. In Scotland, the M90 northbound has 3 lanes restricted between junctions 1C Admiralty and 1B Ferrytoll. Across Wales, the A44232 northbound from St Fagans to M4 J33 Capel Llanilton is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, cross-country and Great Western Railway services are reduced between Newport and Cardiff Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We're celebrating a golden summer with your chance to win a real gold bar. That's right, a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 could be yours. We're also going to make sure your finances are fabulous with £60,000 in tax-free cash. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
More and more people are now tuning in to GB News.
They shape our programmes, we try and incorporate them in our shows as much as we can.
Our audience are really interactive.
Our listeners, our viewers, they're growing.
And that's because they tell their friends and family about what we're doing here at GB News.
It feels like the depth of that connection has strengthened as well.
Thank you so much for speaking to us on GB News.
Come and say hello to everybody that's here from GB News.
It's been an exceptional event.
We've come a long way here now.
unique about GB News viewers is that they